Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'd like to call this City Commission meeting on May 23rd, 2024 to order. Madam City Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Whites,
Here.
Vice Mayor Grunder,
Here.
Commissioner Bloodsworth,
Here.
Commissioner Miller,
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
This evening, we're going to have our invocation offered by the Senior Pastor Greg Waltermeyer from First Baptist Church, please, followed by the pledge.
Heavenly Father, we come to you now and we're asking that you would allow in this facility a sense of unity, a sense of purpose, and certainly a sense of civility in the conducting of this business. And we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
All right, first item is approval of the agenda, and I have been advised by our city attorney that we need to modify the agenda to remove item number 5, new business special event permit. The attorney advises that since that ordinance has not been read in twice and officially passed as a new ordinance, that we not have that agenda item. Is that correct, sir?
Madam Mayor, that's correct. You don't have the legal authority to grant a special permit without the license. It's prohibited under the current provisions of the law.
Okay.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda with the revised version.
Second.
All right, it has been properly moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as modified. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. Next is the approval of the consent agenda, the minutes of the May 9th, 2024 commission meeting. And they were modified, and we've got the updated minutes.
Make a motion that we approve the consent agenda. Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Consent agenda is approved. We have no special presentations or unfinished business this evening, so we're going to go directly to citizens' requests and comments for issues not on the agenda. Please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 5 minutes, please.
Good evening. My name is Rick Testa. I think it was the last meeting I came in and brought up a subject. It's on a community development district proposal.
That's
by
on the
Bridle.
agenda tonight. Did you?
I saw that on the agenda, so, it's interesting. I brought it up just a couple weeks ago, and this was just brought to my attention just a few weeks ago. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around this thing. And I'm not an attorney, but Mr. Walker here helped the other night at a planning board meeting describe some of the reasons why people feel these are not a bad idea.
Since it's on the agenda, can we table, if your comments have to do with something else, otherwise we should probably wait until that agenda item is being discussed.
Okay, I'd be happy to, Madam Mayor, but the reason I got up initially is because there's 5 minutes now, later on there'll be 3.
Right.
And this would take me about a week if somebody would let me try to describe what's going on in this package. And you all have the package, I just don't know who's actually been able to spend some time with it. But I'll try to get back up with my 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
David Lynch, L-I-N-C-H. 8 farm workers were killed by a drunk driver in Marion County recently. These were guests in our country. Some of them perhaps were recent citizens. They came to this country to seeking a better life, and they met with a cruel fate at the hands of a drunk driver. The commissioners know the harm done by alcoholic beverages, but they persist in allowing High Springs Brewing to use the High Springs name to promote alcoholic beverages. Moving on to another subject, too much growth is taking place in this area. It's getting too crowded. People don't want a metropolis, they want a small town.
Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. My name is Mary Helen Wheeler, and I am a county commissioner here to represent you, and I wanted to come tonight to meet the new city manager and the new commissioners I have not had a chance to meet yet, and invite you all to, invite me to come meet with you so that we can get to know each other a little bit better. And we were going to be meeting here in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from tonight. We're going to have a joint meeting. And so I wanted to make sure that I could claim kin to you tonight before we had that meeting, because I didn't want to come in cold with everybody else. But I would encourage you to include me in some of the discussions that you have going on. Let me help you any way that I can. I've always tried to make sure that High Springs had the representation that you wanted at the time you wanted it, and out of your business when you didn't want it. So I encourage you, please, to include me. I will be in office for 2 more years. In 2 years, I will be leaving that office after 8 years of service, 36 years of teaching. I'm ready to go play with a 3-year-old grandson. So I am just here to introduce myself and to meet with you all, to let you know that I am your girl, and for a little bit longer, and anything that I can do to make your jobs easier, I am here to do. So thank you all very much, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. It's good to see you all tonight, and I'll
Thank
see
you.
you in 2
It's
weeks,
good to see
if
you
not
here.
sooner.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All right, we're moving on to new business. Item number 1, discuss, consider, and act on Charter Review Board's recommendations on charter amendments.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I'm here representing the Charter Review Board. We spent many meetings going over the charter and discussing the various revisions that we felt were necessary to bring to you. My understanding is that the report was included in the agenda packet, and so I'm up here to answer any questions you may have. I would like to point out to you that it's my understanding that if, in fact, you are to move forward with any of the proposed revisions, you would probably want to try to get it on as an ordinance, first reading ordinance in the first meeting in June. And it would have to be then advertised, my understanding, for 10 days, which means you probably would not get the second reading until July, so that it can get to the supervisor of elections in time to be on the ballot. So I'm open to any questions you may have.
Do you want to take us through the revisions?
If you would like, sure.
That might be, gentlemen, do you have a preference? Because I think we need to at least read through all of them, and they did put a lot of time into this, so.
All right.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Ms. Weller, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. All right, the first revision was Section 1.02, description of the corporate boundary. The current language actually spells out the comprehensive plan for 2010, and the board felt that that language should be changed, should be revised, so that whatever plan is current is addressed. And so that proposed language is in there. We worked with the city attorney on a lot of this language, and the language that they've proposed is before you. I don't know if you want me to read the proposed language. It's up to you.
Mr. Walker, what do you recommend?
Madam Mayor, I don't think we have to read each item. If the commissioners feel that we need to read it, we certainly can do that. But I think she's summarizing. Sue
Okay.
Weller is summarizing each one of the items. If the commissioners prefer that, then certainly they can.
Gentlemen, do you have a preference?
Summarize that.
Okay.
I
I think
read
just
through it.
I think a summary
Okay.
or just kind of hit the highlights.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, there was everybody needs to understand there was a lot to this. And
There
you
is.
guys, I mean, I'm not expecting you to take what you guys did in 2 months and throw it in here right now.
I was
Okay.
just curious, how often does this happen, the recharter thing?
Every 8 years.
Every 8 years.
8 years,
But
okay.
the charter hasn't been updated in longer than that.
No, the last time it was updated was 2011. It was reviewed in 2011 and amended in 2011.
Okay.
Now, it was reviewed or subsequent to that, but there were no none of the proposed changes went forward.
Gotcha.
That was in 2016.
Okay. So no questions on 1.02, gentlemen? Okay.
Then in section 2.01, which is the composition of the city commission, the current charter specifies and spelled out who the commissioners are in each seat, and we felt that is not something, because by the time the charter comes out, you have several elections, and then those names change. So basically what we've just saying, seat 1, seat 2, without a name, and when that term ends. The other, next section was 2.02, election and terms. We had considerable discussion on that and how to handle a possibility of a tie vote, which is probably would be a very much of a rarity, but it could happen. And the other, a lot of discussion on that was, should there be a runoff? Should we change the charter so that there is a runoff election? The board felt that we should not do that. If you have an election in November, when we have our normal elections, then you're looking at a minimum of, if there is a runoff, you would have, it would be a minimum of 4 weeks. So you're now into December before you would have any results, and the holidays, and therefore you would have a much less turnout of people voting, and the cost as well. You would have to budget every year, and I think it's, we know at least it's at least 7,000. It could be more than that at this point each year if you're going to hold the runoff election. So what we proposed is to keep it as a plurality, as we currently have, and we also put language in there that if in fact there was a tie vote, the city clerk would toss a coin and the winner would be, I mean, there's no other way of going about that type of thing if there's a tie. Then there's the compensation of the commission. There was some language in there that basically said it's a monthly salary as determined. We felt that that could change at some point electronically. It could be every 2 weeks, whatever. So we've put language in there saying that it is that the previous year's salary will continue until the subsequent annual review, and that the commission could adopt by ordinance how commissioners get paid, whether it's monthly, weekly, hopefully not yearly, but yeah. Then the 2.04 covers the mayor's duties, and it basically, there was discussion on this basically saying that in the past, whoever is going to be mayor is determined by the commission, and there could be a situation where where the commission would want the current mayor to have a second term. And what we discussed about that is how to handle that, because we've had other instances in the past where the way you do it by seniority, basically, when you go from one person to the next with the most senior to become mayor, sometimes people get skipped. So what we've said is if there's a supermajority, then a person that's selected as mayor for 1 year could be the mayor a second year, if the supermajority is held. So if you have any questions on that. Then there was, let's see, 2.06, the commission-employee relationship. Based on some past experience, language was proposed to clarify the boundaries of the commissioners in their interaction with the city employees and city mayor. We wanted to make sure that it was clear to whoever was on the commission that their interaction with the employees is to be through the city manager. We did not want someone to be either directly or indirectly direct an employee to do something without the manager being aware of it. The other was that no individual city commissioner could direct the city manager to act on a matter that the commission had not agreed on. And the other piece that was added in there was that if in fact a majority of the commission felt that a member, a commissioner, had violated the charter, that there is the opportunity for the commission to censure that commissioner. And that is from past experience in this that we have gone through in past years on being on the commission. City Commission meetings, Section 2.08.
I've got a question on
Sure.
that one. I'm sorry. Gentlemen, do you have any questions on 2.06? Mr. Walker, you might be able to help us with this in terms of the process to censuring a member. What does that process look like?
I think what the charter provision envisions is that there would be some sort of written document, or there would be a
Resolution.
motion at least, that the commissioner had violated some tenet of the charter. In this instance, it would be it's in the section relating to the commission-employee relationship. I don't think it's necessarily solely related to that. I think it could be censured for other reasons perhaps as well. But that commissioner who is called in question would not vote. And so if we're a 5-member committee, then we're now down to 4, and you have to have a majority to pass the measure for the censure. So it would have to be 3 yays, at least 3 or 4 votes in favor in order to proceed with the censure.
So,
And it-
so the
and-
commissioner that was being censured, where would that commissioner be brought into that conversation? Would it just be publicly at a meeting?
Yes.
Because as you're aware, and I'm sure the gentlemen up here are aware, they received an email accusing me of violating charter. I see this email because I got it through a public records request. So there's documentation here that I've been accused of violating charter. I followed up with your office to go over the details of how that came about. I was assured by the attorney's office that there was no such thing. However, these gentlemen up here wouldn't know that. They wouldn't, we're not privy to sharing those kinds of details, right? So, take me through the process in terms of how do we set this record straight? I have verified with your office, but these gentlemen don't have any idea what the details are with respect to this particular interaction. Would this be eligible for censure?
There is no current provision for censure under our charter at present.
Let's say that
So
happened in the future then.
If this passes, so the procedure is that, first of all, you have to accept all these changes. You have the ability to accept all of the changes, some of the changes, none of the changes. I think as Ms. Weller just said a few moments ago, the past Charter Review Commission recommended to the city to not change, not modify any of the charters. So you have the ability to not modify it, or you can modify it. So you can do what it is that you, as a collective group, and the majority of the group determines is appropriate. So first thing to do is pass an ordinance, which just takes 2 readings and an advertisement at least 10 days in advance of the second reading. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is, and again, going back to what Sue Weller said a few moments ago, in order to get this measure on the ballot for November, you really need to do that in June, the meeting's in June, in order to get it done.
I'm not taking issue with keeping censure language in here. I don't think that's necessarily something that we shouldn't keep. I'm not arguing against it. I'm simply relating a personal experience that's just happened, and these gentlemen have no idea what the details were. So,
So we're, just to clear up, what's I think your question is, Commissioner Grunder, for example, is being accused of something and wants to be censored. What is his due process before the commission, before a vote, so the commission gets the whole?
Well, I see, now I think I'm seeing your point. So I think there would be a motion made. So somebody is claiming that there is a violation of the charter provisions.
In writing.
And wishes to do something about it. So that's going to require one of you commissioners, all of the commissioners would need to see that, including the person who's accused of it. They would need to see what the accusation is, and there would need to be a motion and a second to bring that in front of the commission. Now, I don't know that that would be scheduled at that evening's meeting, or if I would think it would be likely scheduled for some period in the future, and a desire to find out or ferret out what the facts of the accusations is.
Okay.
And then at a point in the future, those accusations would be made, and the commissioner would have an opportunity to defend his or herself against the accusations. And then the commission would have to bring it to a vote. There'd have to be a motion, a second, and it would have to come before the commission on that basis. And the vote then would have to be, because the commissioner under this provision of the charter doesn't vote, it would have to be, it says less the person who is accused. So now we're down to 4 members of the commission, and it has to be a majority of that. So if it's a 2-2 vote, it's a tie and doesn't pass. So it'd have to be 3 voting in favor of the censure. That would be the procedure.
So the due process is basically, if it's brought up at a meeting, that's when you discuss it.
That's right.
Okay.
We
And I-
couldn't do
So-
it otherwise.
May I add also that the language does state that a resolution would have to come before you all as well.
Right. So, I mean, in regard to this specifically, gentlemen, since you saw this email and it was forwarded to you, I approached the city clerk about pulling something from an agenda, and she said, no problem, just send us an email, potentially pulling it from the agenda. I went downstairs and I signed checks. I checked with Grace, I checked in with Diane, I said hi. And I mentioned to the finance director that we might be pulling that from the agenda because we were having a budget meeting 2 weeks later. And that I wanted to step back, you've seen the email, get a 30,000-foot view and figure out where we're going to spend $250,000. And she said, no problem, we've got it, we've got money in different places, just let us know. Then I sent the email to all 3 acting city managers, interim city managers, to let them know, and it was pulled from the agenda, no problem. So that conversation that I had in passing with the finance director is, I assume, the accusation of me breaking charter. So at least now I can publicly discuss with all of these gentlemen what happened, what actually happened. And you can corroborate that that is in fact not breaking charter. I didn't direct the finance director to do anything. I gave her no marching orders. Is that correct?
The provision is that you have to, as a commissioner or as the mayor, you have to direct an employee to do something.
Right.
To take some action or not take some action.
Which in fact I did not do. However, it's easy to make that accusation here. But there's no, and they accused the finance director of breaking employee policy. Is that true or not? I don't know.
I would view a discussion about a procedural item, to put something on the agenda or not have something on, that's a procedural type.
Which I discussed with the city clerk. I mentioned it in passing. Is that acceptable or is that not?
I think that's acceptable.
Okay.
I think you have the
Okay.
right to bring something on the agenda or to not have something on the agenda.
Well, we collectively would hopefully do that. It's not just me, but, So gentlemen, does that clear anything up for you?
I do have a question with this particular item. Is there a way we could add supermajority for this one? So then that way it's not a biased thing. Everybody feels like this person needs to be censored, not just the other majority. I feel like that would be more fair if it's a supermajority, just like we did with the previous section.
You're already requiring 3 votes, so you would either say unanimous vote or you have to, because we're down to 4 votes under this provision.
3 would be a supermajority
Yeah.
out of 4 at that point, so I see your point, though.
Well, if we could do unanimous, so then that way that everybody is on the same page, because I feel like it could be biased if we down to 4 as a vote.
Like I said, I'm not opposed to the censure process at all. I just wanted to understand how you get to that point, because I'm not familiar with that. The verbiage, either publicly or privately, directly or indirectly, I'm not sure that language is necessary, because it says, nor shall the commission or any of its members give orders to any employee other than commission orders to a charter officer. Adding in the either publicly or privately, directly or indirectly seems kind of overkill to me. Like, I mean, if you gentlemen want to keep that in there, that's fine with me, but I think it's pretty clear.
If I may add on that,
Please.
that is from past experience, having been on the commission and such occurred. So it is really just to make sure that everyone knows what the parameters are.
No golf carts.
No.
Yeah.
And there were other things that we did not get into.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Okay, thank you. All right, what's next? No, you don't get a golf cart.
Okay, Section 2.08, which deals with city commission meetings, which talks about holding them once a month, and that special meetings can be called, but they would have to, you would have to provide at least 12 hours' notice, and the state law has changed now, such that there has to be longer notice. It basically requires, I understand, 72 hours' notice. And we also deleted the last sentence that talks about the induction of a new commissioner at 10 a.m. or at 10 o'clock in the morning the following day, which does not happen. So we've adjusted that language to address the state statute language and what really does not happen because it occurs at the next commission meeting, basically. And that is now, that notice now is 3 days' notice. And then Section 2.09 is a forfeiture of office. That is a new section. There's no language in the charter that specifies how violation of the charter is to be handled and what type could cause a forfeiture of office. So we've spelled out language that specifies that if a commissioner does not have the qualifications for the office as prescribed by the charter, if they violate any express prohibition of the charter, if they're convicted of a felony, or if they miss 3 consecutive regularly scheduled monthly commission meetings without being excused by the commission. And this goes forward and talks about if that occurs, then it would be a quasi-judicial hearing to be held to determine if there was actual violation. And then there's Section 3.01 designation. The current language talks about, at the last sentence, that the office of the city manager and the city clerk may be combined in the same appointee. It was our feeling that there's so much work between the city manager and the city clerk that that should not really occur. So that sentence was deleted. And then Section 3.04, city manager power and duties. There were 2 new sections added. There were several sections above that. There was no change to those. But one of the new sections specifies that a city manager would have to gain residency within 12 months of being appointed, but the commission can, of course, extend that due to circumstances, because we talked about the fact that where housing is, that could occur. And the new city manager may not be able to find any housing, so the commission can extend that, and that the other piece we added was that the city manager may discuss with any member of the commission any matter of city business, however, shall not act on direction or orders from a singular member of the commission on any such matter. And then Section 4.03 qualifying. The proposed language recognizes that an individual looking to serve on the commission should, we believe, at least have lived in the city for a year, understanding that gives that individual, we hope, a vested interest in the city by electing to run for commission. And also that they are registered as a voter for Alachua County and under the Constitution of the state of Florida. Anything that we make sure everything that they qualify for that. Then there was schedules and notice of elections, Section 4.05. And again, this talks about that the current charter basically specifies that elections shall have at least a 30 days notice in a publication or local newspaper. State of Florida now allows you to do that electronically. And so we've added language to address that, but we wanted to keep language in there because of that it could also be in newspapers in your local newspaper, because some people just aren't attuned to going online and looking online to see what's going on as far as notice of elections. And then Section 5.02, Oath of Officers, there was a piece added in there based upon discussions with the city attorney that regarding the Florida Constitution be added, and that basically was added that I am not precluded from holding office pursuant to Article 6, Section 4 of the Florida Constitution. That was the only change in that one. Section 5.04, Budget Adoption. There were 2 new sections added to that. The current section talks about the fact that you will adopt an annual budget. We also felt that there should be language adding that if there was excess revenue, then that should come before you to determine what's going to be done with it. But mostly, if there was a reduction of revenue, that you should, as a commissioner, should be notified without delay about that so that you can determine what to do about that issue.
Ms. Weller, can I go back to 5.02? I just want to get clarification on Article 6, Section 4 of the Constitution. Mr. Walker, I looked that up, and it talks about no person convicted of a felony or adjudicated in this way or any other state to be mentally incompetent, and it goes on. Does that mean that if, like, I did something really stupid when I was 19 and I got convicted of a felony? I'm a little older than 19 now. Does that mean that I could never hold office?
No, it means
Okay.
that if you have to restore your rights, and there is a procedure
Okay.
for restoration of your rights. It's really a 2-step procedure, and it's handled by the Clemency Board. And you have to go through that process
Okay.
completely in order
I just
to-
wasn't sure. I
That's what
appreciate that.
is.
Thank you.
Okay, then that takes us to Section 5.05, limitation on alienation of city-owned real property. This spells out the parks and public lands that may not be sold, and some of that has changed, so we've revised that. We've added the sports complex to that list. We've renamed what was Martin Luther King Daycare Center to Catherine Taylor Park Douglas Center, and we've renamed what used to be, say, Howard Memorial Park to Walter Howard Park. Which was our understanding that's what they're referred to as now.
Is the Santa Fe Canoe Outpost one of those now? Are we limited in being able to sell that one as well, now that it's functioning as a public park?
Which one?
The Canoe Outpost.
No,
It's,
I don't.
we're not prohibited from, okay.
So just in conclusion, we had 5 members on the board. All of the provisions that we are proposing were unanimously voted on. And I would like to thank Lynn Jameson, Pastor Jacob Newton, Christy Swilley, and Julie Tapio Rano. I can never say her last name, but anyway. So that's it. We're glad it's over. You know. We had great discussions, and I also would like to thank our city attorney and our city clerk for being there and helping us through this process.
I got one clarification for you here. You're saying Douglas, that should be with 2 S's, L-A-S-S. And it should be Douglas Community Center, not just Douglas Center, it should be Douglas Community Center.
Okay.
Let's see, what else? Let's see here.
And Angela will make a note of that. Okay.
So, gift approved by the vote of the electors by the city. Help me, Mr. Walker. Now, Walter Howard Park couldn't never be sold by the city. Why I say that is because it's stipulation in the agreement. If it ever stop becoming a park, it goes back to the family.
I don't know.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's there. So,
Okay.
Do we
Any
need
other
to
questions?
specify that in the charter? Since you know that, but none of us did, would it be appropriate to put that additional verbiage in there for that particular park?
I think if it came up for sale, research would be done to determine, there's a reverter clause in the deed that goes back to the county, so I think
Okay,
we're okay.
okay. Okay. Gentlemen, do you have any questions, any comments?
Thank y'all. I know this was not an easy
Thank you
process.
for y'all's time.
I appreciate y'all volunteering to do it.
Four of
much
those
needed.
members are here tonight, and I can tell you that they did an amazing job. They really did. All right, so gentlemen, do we have any public comment on any of this?
Linda Jones. I attended a number of the meetings, and they did do a wonderful job. I commend them for it. I do have one issue. Excuse me, I've sat too long without talking. With plurality. That was kind of glossed over. They were talking about if a vote was tied, that what would you do? Of course, but they decided not to have a special election. However, if you have an election, as in 2020, if I can find my file, it moved up, where there were 3 candidates running, and the one person who won the election won by 161 votes. In the other seat, the person won by 67 votes. The third person in each of these, the third candidate, had 900 votes and the other one had 963 votes. In my opinion, with it being that close and the third person being involved, there should be consideration for a runoff, because the people who were elected by 38% of the electorate who voted, and there was a number of people, as you can tell by it was 3,500 people who voted. So in your discussions, I would like you to consider that perhaps when you have 3 or more candidates that, like this circumstance, there might be reason for runoff. Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, gentlemen. Any comments, any suggestions? And Mr. Walker, let me just make sure that I'm clear. We can't add anything to this because they've done all the work to bring it to us. And it's our job just to say yes to all, yes to some, no to all. Is that correct?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
I just want to make sure that we're clear in terms of our task. It's not our job here to add anything to what they brought to us. We're simply to comment on what they've brought to us.
I think you have the ability to add, subtract, modify. It's really your discretion
Okay.
of what it is that how you want to
I didn't have that
proceed.
intention. I just wanted to
Right.
make sure I understood that.
No, I think it's within your
Okay.
collective discretion on how you
Okay.
want to proceed.
Gentlemen?
I make a motion that we accept the Charter Review Board's recommendations, all of them.
And would you also be directing our office to bring back an ordinance at
Yes,
the
sir.
next meeting?
Yes, sir.
All right, we have a motion to accept all recommendations as presented. Do we have a second?
Does that include the name changes?
Absolutely. Yes,
Oh,
sir.
include
I
Douglas.
apologize. Yes, sir,
Yeah.
I missed that. But that is, that motion with the name changes to be appropriate for the parks.
Second.
All right, is this a roll call vote, since this is the charter, or no? All right, it has been properly moved and seconded that we accept all recommendations made by the Charter Review Board, with the one addition being Douglas Community Center. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Thank you all so much for your time. We really appreciate it. It's been a long time. All right. Item number 2. Discuss, consider, and act on ordinance number 2024-01, an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, establishing the Bridlewood of High Springs Community Development District. Mr. Walker? should
Madam
you read
Mayor,
this?
I talked to the attorney for Bridlewood shortly before the meeting, and I think he would like to come up and present on behalf of Bridlewood. And I think, I think the intent is this should be more of an informational discussion this evening as opposed to the actual passage of the ordinance. I think that's what the intent is. But I don't want to put words in your mouth, Joe.
I appreciate it. My name is Jarrett Earlywine. I'm with QTAC Rock here on behalf of the petitioner. I think we had our discussion with the planning board, and now it's in front of the city council for the first time, or city commission rather. And I'm happy to provide a little bit of background on the petition. Obviously, I think you guys are familiar with the Bridlewood development. It's moving forward. It's been approved for development. The community development district is it's essentially another aspect of the development, but what it really is it's a way to manage the infrastructure that's different than a homeowners association. So it has two components. It's got a financing component, and it's also an operation and maintenance entity. Back in the and some of this for the planning board is probably repeat, but for the sake of being complete. Back in the 1980s, the Florida legislature recognized that Florida was going to be a growth state and that there was going to be a lot of people moving to Florida, and that obviously is the case, and it's coming to High Springs too. And what they were curious about is, is there a way that we can make sure that there's an efficient way to bring stormwater ponds and roads and utilities and all the things that you need for residential development and mixed-use development in Florida. And so they looked around the nation. They came up with Chapter 190 of the Florida statutes, and they created that statute. And what a CDD effectively is it's a homeowner association that can do more things. And just like a homeowner association gets established, but unlike a homeowner association, it's established by the city or county. Once it's established, the CDD goes out and issues tax-exempt bonds. It uses the bond money to put in roads and stormwater ponds and utilities, and it can spread the cost of those costs over time. So it goes out and issues bonds, finances the infrastructure, puts it in, and then repays those with a special assessment just on the property within the district's boundaries. Then, after the infrastructure is in, it operates like a homeowner association and just does the maintenance of the improvements. So that's kind of how it works. And like I said, there's kind of two major benefits, and there's a third benefit as well that I'll talk about in a second. The first benefit is there's a financial benefit. We're able to put in a better quality project than we otherwise would if we didn't have the CDD, right? And the reason is because we can access the same municipal bond market that you guys access when you take out a city loan. Same thing with the CD. You can access that tax-exempt bond market. The money costs less, and so there's more money that we can put in the deal. If you look at CDD projects around the state, one of the reasons that they're so popular is because the infrastructure looks better. You have a better quality amenity package. You have a better quality entry features. The landscaping is nicer because they can afford to do that. And they can also afford to do it with competitive home pricing, right? So it doesn't necessarily increase the home pricing because there's more money in the deal to go around. It doesn't just save people money on the front end, though. It also saves money later on. When residents take over the board, and they typically take over earlier than a homeowners association, they can come back in 10 years if they got to redo the roads, they got to redo the stormwater ponds. They can take out a tax-exempt loan, spread the costs over time, save the community a bunch of money, and it's a nice savings for them at that point too. So there's that financial aspect. The second major benefit is it's just a better entity than a homeowner association in terms of managing that infrastructure. And for Bridlewood, we've got the CDD managing the roads, the stormwater ponds, obviously the utilities would get turned over to the city because you guys make money off of those, right? But the hardscape, landscape, irrigation, all of that stuff we manage by the CDD. The advantage to that is that we collect our assessments on the tax roll. Homeowner associations can't do that. And if you look around the state, especially during the Great Recession, a lot of communities were coming to the cities and counties and saying, we can't take care of our stuff. We can't take care of our roads, and we can't take care of our stormwater ponds. Would you city or would you county take this back, take this over for us? And the cities and counties are like, we don't have money for roads, right? We don't have money for your stormwater ponds. And so that was a real problem. And in fact, if you go around the state and you talk to Charlotte County or Marion County or up in St. Johns County, a lot of cities and counties require you to have a municipal service taxing unit on your property, that's basically a special taxing district that you guys control, or a CDD. They require it because they got tired of the HOAs coming and asking for help to take care of their infrastructure. And that's because they can collect on the tax roll. CDs can. So that's a big advantage in terms of having a stable revenue stream and being able to take care of your stuff. In addition to that, cities also can get FEMA funding, which a lot of HOAs can't get. They can also have sovereign immunity protection, so their liability is much lower than an HOA. I've got management companies that represent both CDs and HOAs. The liability is way higher on the HOA side because they don't have sovereign immunity. And overall, it just maintains your property better, and it's a more transparent entity. So that operation and maintenance component is really key. The third advantage, which I'll mention as well, is once you have a CDD in place, we all worry about the market, market bubble or something like that. If there's a downturn in the economy, the CDDs actually fare better than a traditional property that might have a mortgage loan on it or something like that. And the reason is because once the CD has issued taxes and bonds, there's a reserve account there, and the reserve account can be used to keep your landscaping watered, pay for your amenity center to stay open, while the default process goes through, and they're actually foreclosing not on a mortgage lien, which is just a contract, but they're foreclosing a first priority assessment lien. And so the foreclosure takes less time, it's more effective, and they have money to kind of keep the project going during that time. And we saw that during the Great Recession when you had HOA and CDD communities, maybe some of those defaulted, the CDs tended to fare better. So there's a lot of advantages to that structure. So much so that, if you look around Florida, there's like 982 CDDs in Florida. It's not like they're not popular. They're super popular. If you look around the United States, 87% of the master plan communities are within some sort of special taxing district. The reason? It's because they're a more efficient entity and a better entity to take care of infrastructure. The top 50 master plan communities, this is as of 2023, top 50 in the United States, 16 were actually in Florida, and except for the two Margaritavilles, and I think one other project, they're all CDD communities. It's not like they're not popular. They work just fine, and they work well, and they're super popular because they're better entities in terms of maintaining infrastructure and whatnot. All that said, that's kind of an overview of the CDD. I know you guys have questions. We've tried to reach out and talk with some of you guys. I know we have some other meetings planned, so we can reach out and talk some more too. But this is obviously an opportunity here in public. We can talk about the CDD structure. We welcome your questions and really appreciate your considering the petition.
Mayor, may I ask a few questions?
Sure, please.
Jer, there is an advertisement requirement. I believe you said that your group was willing to front the advertisement costs on behalf of the city. Is that correct?
That's right. So Chapter 190, the way most cities work is they'll have a first read and a second read, right? And there's 4 weeks of notice for the public hearing. Usually the public hearing is your second reading. And so we'll run 4 weeks of notice leading up to that public reading, that second reading and that public hearing. And we would obviously pay for the cost of that advertisement.
You spoke about the benefits of community development districts, and it's a creature under Chapter 119 or 190 as a special purpose district. It's capable of suing or being sued, so it's an independent entity. Your application specifies there will be 5 commissioners that will be appointed.
That's right, and that's set by statute, so that's not particularly flexible. It's set by statute. In the early years, they're elected by landowners. After you reach 250 residents and you reach 6 years of existence, they have to turn over to residents at that point. That said, you can actually sell half of the property, and in year 2, you could actually start having residents on that board and controlling the majority of that board through the landowner election process, which occurs every 2 years. So they have an earlier time clock. If you compare that with an HOA that turns over at 95% build out of the entire property, that's a big difference. The CDD is designed to turn over more quickly than the homeowner association.
What you spoke to the benefits, which is very helpful, and the purpose of Chapter 190. There have been CDD districts that have failed in the state of Florida. Speak to that, if you would, Jer, and tell us the exposure to the city if such an unfortunate event happened in Broadwood. These are fairly rare occurrences, is my understanding. But if you would speak to that, please.
No, absolutely. And you're right, it is a rare occurrence. And the bottom line is that you can have any project, any development project can fail, whether it's got a CDD or an HOA. The advantage, though, of having the CDD, and this is part of the way Chapter 190 was written, it was intended for having this extra protection, is once the district's established its issued bonds, there's a lot of protection there in a default scenario. One is you're foreclosing a first priority tax lien. So it's a better enforcement mechanism. It's a faster enforcement mechanism when you go through foreclosure than a traditional mortgage loan, for example, that you've got to foreclose. So it's a faster. That's part one. Part two is you've got bond money set aside in what's called a reserve account. Again, that money can be used for keeping the landscaping watered, keeping the amenity center open. You can pay for those costs. You can actually pay for the foreclosure costs too from that account while you go through foreclosure. Vast majority of those that actually did foreclose were out back in productive use within 6 to 12 months, which is really, really fast. The other point I would make is that the CDD typically issues its bonds early on and uses that construction money. So rather than sort of having construction money that might be with a developer that's defaulted, the money's actually in a trust estate account and is there on the front end to put that infrastructure in. So usually your infrastructure is in the ground earlier, which is the promise to the bondholders, and has to be spent with a certain period of time. So it's a really nice structure and has a lot of protections. You compare that with your HOA project. What's the HOA got if there's a default? There's none of those advantages. So, there's no perfect structure that's going to protect you in a default, but the CDD structure is much better. The second part of your question was, what's the liability to the city? I'd speak to that in this regard. One is, there's no liability to the city. The statute's very clear, and we can, Scott, you can probably speak to this too. There's a statutory provision actually in 190 that says no CDD debt or obligation, any obligation of the CDD can become an obligation of the city. So you're not going to get that problem. You all, though, know as well as I do that you're going to get complaints from communities, right? So, if there's a defaulted community, yeah, you're going to hear from some residents probably come out and complain about it and whatnot. That can happen with HOA, it can happen with CDD, either side of it. But you can have fewer complaints. The reason is you've got the ability to collect on the tax roll, which makes it, you've got all those other advantages I talked about for the foreclosure. But then in addition, the city's collecting on the tax roll, so it's got a more stable revenue stream. They tend to fare better than an HOA in some sort of default scenario.
I appreciate you were spending some time with this. To my knowledge, this is the first CDD in our history. So I think there's a lot of concern about this, and so the discussion, I think, is extremely helpful. You've outlined in your application that there is categories that are going to be maintained by the CDD district. There is categories that are going to be owned by the city, water, sewer, that sort of thing. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the CD is going to bring a lot of value to you all for two reasons. One is, obviously, you're going to own the utilities, which you always do, right? So you're going to have the utilities, you're going to get the revenue off of that. That's the part that you guys want to accept and typically accept. The other advantage is the CD is going to operate and maintain its own roads. So if you go down to Pasco County right now, I don't mean to pick on that county on a public record especially, but they don't have money necessarily set aside for their neighborhood roads. And so what they're looking at, and I think they actually passed an ordinance on this, where they're putting in MSTUs over neighborhoods that have been there for 30 years to pay for the neighborhood road improvements because they haven't budgeted for it. And it's very difficult for cities and counties to do that. In this case, the CDD can take care of that all by itself, and so that's a really big advantage. And then again, going back to my earlier point, not only are we maintaining all the infrastructure, we're on the tax roll, so that really helps us a lot in terms of being a stable maintenance entity, but you're just much less likely to actually get complaints. In fact, the biggest advocates for CDDs when I've gone to cities and counties is city and county commissioners who live in CDDs because their communities look great. And what they say, and I've got public record recordings I can send to you, what they say is it maintains our property values better than a traditional HOA. I know there's some hesitancy because you don't have a lot of them here in Alachua County, but there's 982 of them in Florida. They didn't get to that number because people hate them, you know what I mean? And they're so popular around the United States as well. You really can't do a master plan community without a special taxing district like that.
There is $38 million that you're intending to raise through bond funding for this project. Will that how will that occur?
Yeah, so the number of that's the public infrastructure. That doesn't include the private development part of the project. The $38 million represents the potential for what needs to be put into the ground. The district, however, won't put out $38 million of bond debt. You want to know why? Because they can't sell the homes if they did that, right? Because the debt assessments would be too high. So what they do is they look at market rates for what other communities might be paying forward for their debt assessments, and usually they'll maybe the debt assessments are 25, the bonds are enough to pay for maybe a quarter or a third of that number. The balance of it is actually paid out of the developer's pocket. But they size it so they can actually sell the home. So you don't have to worry so much about what people are paying because they look at the community, they look at the home that they're buying, and then they look at their closing statement. If it doesn't make sense for them, they don't buy the home, in which case the developer restructures kind of how that debt looks and may pay some of it off for them in order to get that price where they can actually sell the home. So the market takes care of the question you're raising.
Those are all the questions I have, Madam Mayor.
So, thank you, sir. So I had done some math on my own. You've told me a little bit of a different story here because I saw the $38 million number as well, and that was over 474 units, so that was $80,000 of debt burden per homeowner. So my math added up to $2,600 a year. So you're saying that that's not how it would work?
That's not. But the reason we put the full number in there is we want to show you, how expensive it is to put the community in place, right? And that's just the public portion of it. There's private as well. It doesn't mean that we can't finance any portion of that, but we certainly won't finance $38 million because no one's going to pay the $2,600 a year on a home in Alachua County. It's just going to happen. So they'll price it. They'll look at other CDs in the area and price based on that.
Gentlemen, do you have questions? I have more, but go ahead, please.
In the original plan of this, I know it was like some facilities were supposed to come in, like a fire department, land for school. So I was looking at this part, the table 1, the table 2. Would the CDD own the fire department, or would the city of High Springs own the fire department?
No, so think of the CDD, like I said at the beginning, it's really a homeowner association that can kind of do more stuff for your community, but it doesn't run fire departments, it's not a police service provider, it's not going to issue permits or do zoning, all that stuff remains with you guys. So to the extent there's fire department or school or whatever, that runs through its normal process. What the CDD does is it acts as a developer of the public improvements, and then it operates like a homeowner association and manages it, maintains it. That's all it does. It's like an HOA that can do more stuff.
All right, and even with the utilities, so I see you listed all but solid waste. Is solid waste going to be on a separate contract with that area, or will it be what the city does as a majority? So solid waste isn't on this table.
Yeah, I don't know that we're. I think that just runs through the city, does it not? Yeah, I think that's the case. Unless there's some special thing that I'm not aware of, but yeah.
So not 2,600 a month, or a year, excuse me, but what do you estimate? Your best guess, I understand it's a guess. at this point.
It's hard to say, just like a home. So there's two components to it. There's the debt component, which most people ask about, and then there's the operation and maintenance. The operation and maintenance is just like a homeowner association, so whatever it costs to run your lawnmower and water the grass and all that stuff, that's going to be whatever it is for the community, right? This is your operation cost. Cleaning the roads, street sweeping, all that stuff, right? That's operations. The debt component, again, is going to be sized based on the market, and honestly, we won't know until we get in there, but y'all can look around and see kind of what other CDs in the area. That's how we're going to gauge it. If it's too high, we'll lower it so we can sell the homes. If it's too low, they'll bump it up because they feel like there's value there, right? So I don't know. I don't think we have an exact number at this point. We're so early on. So, but I would look at your comparables for what other cities in this area are doing. I don't know if it's like $1,000 a year or something like that probably. Kelly, speak up if I'm misstating.
Oakmont is a good example of a CDD in Alachua County.
Can you come up so that everybody can hear you, please, ma'am?
Oakmont in the Gainesville area is a good example of a CDD. They used their funds to put in a beautiful multi-million-dollar clubhouse with Olympic-sized swimming pools. They also used it for infrastructure and roadways.
What are they paying?
I would have to look to get the exact number, but it's about $100 and something a month.
So are there other areas in Alachua County?
Yes, there's other CDDs in Alachua County.
About a half dozen in Alachua.
Point.
And, you know, there's Hernando, Marion, there's increase, and I know there's a petition in with Newberry. There's a lot of CDs being established because there's a lot of master plan communities coming to Florida.
Also, we're talking about quality of builders that are coming in. This is a luxury community. So in essence, people are going to pay to have luxury amenities, and they're going to pay to live in a good community that's well-maintained and that maintains its beauty and its value. One of the things that I've heard from some of the regional builders is that they prefer to build in communities with CDDs because it makes it a more cost-effective way to develop and to build.
And then my question was, I know when I had my meeting with you all, I stated that I know with Celebration Point and others, CDDs, they have the special tax when you buy something from like restaurants and different things. You all say you all don't plan on doing a lot of commercial with Bridalwood. Did you all put that verbiage in your new?
I know exactly what you're talking about. So what you're talking about is the public improvement fee, which is pretty popular out west, like in Colorado and whatnot. I think Celebration Point has a PIF like that. What it is, and it can happen in a CDD community or a non-CDD community, because all it is it's a recorded covenant, almost like a homeowners association declaration, where it gets recorded against the property. And what it allows or requires the retail folks to do is collect an extra kind of tax from the retail sales, and then they give it to the landowner, right? That's what the PIF is. It's not necessarily tied to a CD. It's certainly nothing we're doing, because all we're doing is residential homes in our community. So there will not be a PIF, and we can absolutely add that to our ordinance and make that happen. But that's definitely on the list to get done.
Thank
So
you.
that's clear.
A PEF is a completely
And
different.
it's completely unrelated to what we're talking about.
Correct.
Yeah, although it's a good question, right? Because it's at Celebration.
Yeah, I mean, just as long as the verbiage is there, because although you don't plan on doing it, the fact that the verbiage is not there,
Yes, sir.
you have the ability to do it. So,
Right,
just as long
and
as it's
any
there.
development has the ability to do that, right? Every single development that comes in here that has a business component can do a PIF by recording their own covenant. So, but we're happy to waive that in the statute or in some private agreement or however you want to handle it, it's fine.
So, Celebration Point's not. Other residential areas in Alachua County, give me 2 or 3.
There's Finley Woods, there's Parker Road, there's Spring Hills North, which is not yet developed. It's a cloverleaf kind of off the interstate, but it's established. There's 5 of them, I think. I can't remember the others, but those are some of them. And yeah, and would you say
Oakmont.
Oakmont? Yeah,
Oakmont.
that's one of them.
So how's Oakmont working at this time?
Wonderful. I mean, they're almost, I think, 95% built. It's a very sought-after community. Some of the coaches for the University of Florida live there. They have affordable housing that has gained a lot of interest through a national builder, ICI. So they start in like the 400s or 500s, and believe it or not, that's affordable housing these days.
I guess for the University of Florida professors and courses, I guess so.
If you all want to attract like the Del Webbs and the Toll Brothers and those types of quality builders, you're going to need a CDD to make the numbers work. So.
Okay.
I'll tell you the one thing I liked going through this was it's a pay to play. They got to pay to come in here and move
the
in
whole
here.
point of
And
it,
it's
yeah.
they got to pay to keep up their roads, which if you drive around our town right now,
But
we've had some issues lately with it. So I do like the pay to play that they're talking about, which is the whole reason we just updated our impact fees, is so that, if you want to be in here and you want to come into this community, that it's going to cost you to be here. You got to really invest, and and unfortunately investing these days is with that pocketbook. So that's one of the parts that I really did appreciate about this. I'll be honest, I didn't know a lot about this before this. I didn't know anything about it, actually. So I did have that meeting with you guys, and I appreciated your time. You were very kind throughout the whole thing and working with me and my cop brain on how to work through this. So I do appreciate that, and it's a lot to take in, though. It is.
No, I mean, part of the reason that they created Chapter 190 is to make sure that growth pays for itself. And so I think your point is well made.
Yeah.
I got one more question, and I promise I'm
No,
done.
yes, sir, please.
So what would be the role of the commissioners in the CDDs?
Nothing at all. It's just like any other community that has an HOA. You guys don't do anything, right? The question is down the road.
No, not us. The ones that's out there.
Oh, the board supervisors that run
Yeah.
the CD? So it's just like an HOA board, right? In the early days, it's populated by the developer. Like I said earlier, it turns over a little earlier to the residents. In fact, it's staggered. The statute's pretty smart in this regard. They put 2 residents on the board early on, and then you have a full majority board come on later. And the idea is to kind of educate the folks from the community as they get on the board. But they run the board just like a homeowners association. They can set their own budget. They can decide, yeah, we want really nice landscaping at the front, or we want to repave our roads early, or we want to wait. You know, they take care of their own community. You know, growth pays for itself, and they get to decide their own destiny.
Ultimately, keeping the cost of developing the homes down.
Yeah, that's right.
So the fees are collected through the tax?
Yes, sir.
And it's returned back to that organization?
It's exactly right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just curious how that worked. I'm not sure. I've never been in HOA, so didn't know how this was going to be
Yeah.
comparable to that as well.
We have an agreement between the CDD and the property appraiser, between the CDD and the tax collector, and every summer, they'll submit a list of the property owners that are within the boundaries of the district. We submit the roll back, and it says, here's what the assessment's gonna be, and it goes on the tax roll, just like any other special taxing district or anything else.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Do you have any other questions?
Nope.
I have a couple of questions. The way you're talking about HOA and CDDs, what I was able to determine is that those are not mutually exclusive. Communities can have both. Is that correct, or no?
Well, you need both, right? Because you need one to take care of the architectural part of the houses, and then you need something to take care of the public infrastructure. So generally speaking, you've got a small HOA that's just kind of doing the, you know, you got to put your trash can behind the house or whatever, right? It's taking care of that kind of stuff, or you know, you want to paint your house, this is the color you got to use. So that's what the HOA is doing. Oftentimes, for efficiency purposes, you might hire a single manager to manage both of them. It kind of keeps the cost down. But generally speaking, you've got both in the community at the same time.
And the reason why you're not doing the HOA, it appears to me, is to leverage the sure future income to get no interest bonds, to make it easier to finance,
Well,
because you're getting it through non-ad valorem tax revenue.
I mean, it's the reason you're doing the CDD is for all the reasons that we're talking about. So we're able to put in a better quality project, right? The kind of project you guys would expect Bridalwood to be. And then we want to be able to make sure that when we're talking to residents, they know that they're going to be able to come in and save themselves money later on when they refurbish the project. And then on the operation and maintenance side, they can collect on the tax roll. They can get FEMA funding. They've got sovereign immunity protection. They're more transparent. It's just a better management structure. And so you do it for all of those reasons.
For
The
instance,
neighborhood directly to the south of Bridalwood, Tillman Acres, it's been there for 24 years. They do very well with their HOA. I think it's a beautiful community. So one of my bigger concerns here is that when Bridalwood was pitched early on a couple years ago, we were told about how great it was going to be for the community, how much green space there was going to be for the kids in High Springs. The amenities were going to be amazing for the community. If I lived in this community, I wouldn't want somebody else's kids swimming in my pool. So it seems to me like that might not be actually how it would work. Is that correct or no?
They're public facilities. So if we finance them through the CD, they would be public amenities.
Okay, the ones that I researched in Hillsborough County, because there's a lot in Hillsborough and Pasco County, I looked through the CDD documents, and it stated in there that, you know, all access to the amenities had a key fob that you had to have to get into, and they were all locked. So I'm not sure
Well, it's just like a
how
public
that
pool.
works.
You can't come to Hillsborough County and just go to the pool anytime you want to. You've got to pay a fee to pay for the service on it. Same thing with the CDD. You can't have residents that are paying full freight on that community.
Right.
And then have non-residents come in and not pay something. So
Exactly.
It's a managed community, but it's also, it's a facility that anyone, if they want to access the parks and trails and whatnot, they pay their fee. It's set by rule. It goes to rulemaking hearing, and you can have access
How would
to
that work?
facility.
How would that work for, because like I said, when this was pitched, it was pitched because of all this great green space, all the parks it was going to add for the entire community. This really kind of sets this community apart from the rest of High Springs, from what I'm seeing here. And when Bridlewood is built out, it will double the size of High Springs. So we're going to have a little mini city within High Springs.
Here's the thing, though. The project's already been approved for development. The question is, do you want it to be the best community it can be, or do you want it to kind of have the older model? I'm not saying that you can't have, like, the Tillman Estates. Like, an HOA can work fine, right? But the CDD brings so many other advantages to it, especially for a master plan community, that it makes a lot of sense to do it with the CDD. Again, you're gonna have a better quality package. You're gonna have a better amenity package. You have better quality landscaping, entry features. The project looks a lot better. And on top of it, you got all the other advantages for the operation and maintenance.
I'd like to mention that Turkey Creek, right now I'm working with a new couple, and they are currently purchasing a home in Turkey Creek, and due to some of the problems that happened during the hurricane, there was huge special assessments that happened to improve the roadways and to fix things based on all the flooding, and their HOA went from like being around $300 and something a quarter to now it's over $800 a quarter.
Well, one of the things about an HOA is if they get in trouble, they have a hurricane come through, or they have a sinkhole, or they don't anticipate something right in their budget, they have a really hard time taking out a loan. And so what ends up happening is they end up having to put a special assessment, which is a big spike in a single year to pay for something. It doesn't happen with a CDE because they've got the ability to take out a long-term loan because they have tax roll assessments on the roll, and banks look at that, and bondholders look at that. And so it allows them to adjust for those sorts of things. So it's a better structure, it really is.
It's also a separate government entity. It is an actual separate government. Is that correct?
It is, just like a homeowners association is separate from you guys, the CDD is as well.
But
So the debt
an
doesn't
HOA
show
board's
up
not
on
a
your-
government-regulated board, right? It's not, do they have the same kind of requirements to report their annual
They do.
audits?
They have Form 1 requirements, so it's a very transparent entity compared to a homeowners association. They have Form 1 reporting requirements. They have to operate in accordance with the Sunshine Law. They're subject to public records laws. So yeah, there's some oversight. We also have reporting requirements to the state. We also submit our budgets to the city and county, just so you guys have copies of them.
So how does the CDD board differ from an HOA board in terms of how they're elected, how they're appointed? Because I know, I only recognize one name on the current board. I don't know who the other four are, but with the realtor that's going to be selling these homes being one of the initial board members, is that not a conflict of interest?
Well, so the statute allows for, just like a homeowners association in your early days, you're gonna have the developer sitting on the board, right? And with an HOA, that turnover doesn't happen until you've got 90 to 95% rooftops, right? It takes a long time to turn over an HOA board. The CDD has a different structure, like you're suggesting. In the early years, we identify the supervisors in the ordinance. There's a landowners election within 90 days. The majority of the acres are owned by the developer, so they're gonna vote those seats in the early days. They're gonna do the bonds, do the construction. Every 2 years thereafter, they have landowners elections, and they're staggered, right? There's maybe 2 seats up the first election, 3 the next one, so on and so forth. When you get year 6, you have to start putting residents on the board if you have 250 people living there, which would obviously be the case in a community of that size. But if you own, if you sell over half your lots by year 4, then residents can actually start populating the board early, right? It's at 50% build out, right? Not 90% build out. So you actually get the residents involved much earlier than you would with an HOA board. Does that make sense? So it's a lot like an HOA from the standpoint the developer populates it early and then transitions to residents, but the turnover is actually earlier with the CDD.
Can you tell me how many of these 5 individuals that are initial board members live in High Springs?
I know one of them did, the attorney that's on
I don't know which one's the attorney. I don't know.
Gumminger.
I don't have that name here.
I'm sorry. I will get that to you. That
I've
should
got
be on there.
Jenkins, Fowler, Lamelza, Fisher, and Cruz.
Okay.
Do any of those live in High Springs?
I don't know the other members other than Lamelza.
But if you didn't have the CDD, you'd have an HOA board, and they'd be populated by those same people. So I don't know that makes a difference. Does that make sense?
I'm trying. I'm
Sure.
trying to make sense of it. So this proposes just Phase 1 and Phase 2 are this current CDD, 474 residential units. As those phases are completed, what happens with additional phases? Do you form additional CDDs that operate independently? Or do those phases piggyback off of the funds that are paid in by these residents?
So what'll end up happening is we'll probably, depending on how the project progresses in terms of timing, obviously the developer needs to control that CDD while the development's going on because, they know how to develop projects, right? And so that makes the most sense, just like they would with an HOA project. If the timing works, we may come back and ask for a boundary amendment to add some more land into it. If the project's big enough and the time stretches out for a long period of time, like 10 or 20 years, we might come back and ask for a second CDD. But those are decisions that you don't have to decide today. Today, you're just deciding about the 474 units.
So this will have one or the other, an HOA or a CDD.
In this case, you're gonna have both.
Or both.
One to do the architectural control. You don't have to have both, but in this case, we're gonna have one to do architectural control, really small HOA, and a pretty good size CDD.
So are people gonna have to pay two bills, or?
Well,
Yes.
it's just the administrative costs is the only difference, and because you're using the same management company, it's usually pretty cheap. It's not an additional cost. I will say this, there are some additional administrative costs. So if you have a small project that's like 100 units, I would say don't do it, right? But here, you've got 474 lots. 2/3 of the 982 CDs in Florida are of the size of about 300 to 500 units. So this is right in the sweet spot, if not on the bigger side of CDD projects in Florida. I mean, this is exactly what you want. There's $38 million of infrastructure. The developer's going to fund the vast majority of that, and then some of it's going to be paid for through the CDD, and then it's just a great operation and maintenance entity.
What's the estimate fee for amenities for non-residents? Do y'all have an estimate fee?
There's no way for me to know that, but they would take the operating costs and figure it out. Obviously, you want to make it fair so that people from the outside are paying what the people on the inside are paying, right?
Okay. And then one last, I'm sorry. With the CDD, I know we have talked about all the ones that have been successful, but we do know that one is failing right now. So why is it failing?
I don't know which one is.
Celebration Point.
Point.
Celebration Point. I mean, it all depends on the development and the development dynamic. But again, you can have any project fail, and a lot of it depends on the developer and the dynamic. The advantage of having the CDD is there's more money in the deal, right? And you can collect on the tax roll, you can go through foreclosure more quickly. If you didn't have those structures, it's much more likely to fail. With the CD, you actually have your money up front, the construction money, right? At least a big chunk of it is up front. In the construction account after the bonds are issued, if the project does fail, you can get through foreclosure faster. There's institutional bondholders that push those further along. I'll tell you, and I can't remember the name of the project, but back during the Great Recession, I think it was in Lake County, there were two projects that were originally owned by the same developer. I think it sold a piece of it. One of it was a CDD, and across the street was a non-CDD project. The non-CDD project had a mortgage loan on it, and they both, the developer went bankrupt, right? And so the projects failed. The one that was a CDD actually got back into productive use way faster than the other one, and they actually kept their amenity center open. They kept cutting the landscaping, watered it. The other one sat there a long, long time because it had a bank loan on it, and the bank didn't do anything with it.
Gentlemen, any more questions? It's a lot to take in.
It is. We're happy to answer any questions you have, obviously. Appreciate you thinking about it.
Should we open it up to public comment at this time, gentlemen? Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Welcome to the land of orange and blue, by the way, from your garnet and gold home.
Yeah.
Do we have any comments from the audience?
Linda Jones. I was one of the commissioners who voted for Bridlewood. I've learned a lot about Bridlewood since we voted to have Bridlewood brought in. I don't think I've ever been succinctly put in my place or whatever. This is going to be a luxury community, and I was not aware of that. I think we're going to have two separate cities, as the mayor said, and it's, I guess when I approved it, I was thinking of another subdivision, like we have around here. This is obviously going to be something special. those residents who have to pay to get in to walk or run the trails, and that was never mentioned, or go into the swimming pool, that was never mentioned. I understand it. I can understand their problems. If I owned a however many hundreds of thousands of dollars home, I wouldn't want the city residents just coming in and using my trails or my pools. But again, it's a different community than what I had anticipated.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My name's Rick Testa, and now I only get 3 minutes, and I need a week. But one of the things that the gentleman that was just up here said to all of you, you heard it just like me, and he used the phrase 3 or 4 times, master plan community. I've been opposed to this from the beginning, 4 years, 3.5 years, whatever it's been, because we could go through this forever, this discussion of can High Springs, the way it's developed now, the way the roads are set up and everything, can it even handle a master plan community? Some of the arguments I heard the other night from some folks that were trying to help me understand this stuff a little better was a comparison to the villages. If any of y'all haven't been to the villages, it used to be Leesburg, a little tiny town like High Springs just a few years ago. Now the villages is on the west side of the turnpike, it's on the east side of the turnpike, it's south, it's north, it's like the old movie from the 50s called The Blob. It just ate Central Florida. I don't believe the Bridlewood people have this intention to create some kind of science fiction monster. But the development that was introduced here 3.5 years ago will become that, whether they admit it or not. High Springs just can't handle the traffic, all those problems we talked about. But their words in their document, if you all studied this, there was a specific document inside the big, thick document called Bridlewood Community Development District. Do you remember seeing that? Mm-hmm. That one helped me understand or kind of water down what the big picture was, because I'm not an attorney. An attorney wrote all this. I don't understand half of it. But this helped a lot, because I'm going to use their words, and I only have 3 minutes. I have 18 pages of questions. As a citizen here, when do I get to ask those 18 questions? But the first one that really jumps out and bothered me is one that the mayor brought up also. They call themselves, their word, a special purpose local government. Who gets to do that? Who in this town gets to call, does the ice cream shop down the street or Osteen Paving, do they get to develop a special purpose government so they can use other people's money? No, they don't. They get special, their words, not mine, and quote, due to the relatively low cost of financing available to CDDs, due to the tax-exempt nature of CDD and the debt, certain things are available to them that the ice cream shop won't have. How can that be competitive to the developer that comes in and wants to build another development like Tillman Acres? They built those homes, they put in those roads and the trees, and it's a beautiful development right down the street from my house. They don't get tax advantages. They don't get special financing because they're not a CDD. That was only 3 minutes, and I've got 16 more questions. I'll save them for another night. But think about this long and hard before you bite this one in, and don't take too big of a bite. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Testa.
Mr. Testa?
Mr. Testa, so I'm interested in your 18 questions. So give Ashley a call Tuesday, and I'd like to set up an hour with you, because I'm learning more about these CDDs as well. They're very different than what I'm used to. And I'm interested in hearing your 18 questions, and maybe I can get some answers for you so you don't have to do 2 questions, 3 minutes over 9 commission meetings. So why don't we set and see if I can get some of your answers for you and save you some time.
Thank you, sir. I'll do that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, Mel Campos. I just wanted to know, would there be an FAQ that you put out after that session so that everyone can get the information?
Figure something out.
Thank you.
And if I may just address one thing, I think if the question is the development a good idea, that question's already been addressed because the property's zoned and entitled, right? The question we're talking about is how you want to operate and maintain it, how you want to finance the infrastructure. So it's two different questions, if that makes sense. So happy to answer any of the questions you may have.
Wait, let me just make sure I'm clear. You said how we want to finance and operate. It's not the city financing, you mean the developer.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not us.
And yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, but my point is the project's moving forward, and the question is it a better choice to use a traditional HOA, or is it better to have the CD angle with all the advantages that it has? So,
Okay.
thank you all.
Sue Weller, I just have a question as to why this was not part of the original package that was presented to the city, rather than wait until it gets approved and now come in and say, now we want a CD.
Good question. Can anybody representing Bridlewood answer that?
I mean, the fact of the matter is most CD petitions are done after zoning. And so this is not an atypical, we haven't started construction, so this is pretty much when all the petitions come in. You file your CD petition at the same time as you're kind of getting your permits in place. And that's just the ordinary course of the process. I don't know there's a...
I'm sure you can understand, though, that, I mean, for a lot of us that have been plugged into this for a number of years, it feels like a bait and switch to us because, like I said, it was pitched as this great green space, this amazing place for the entire community, and it just isn't going to be that. If it's a CDD, I mean,
No,
it may not be anyway, but.
I think it's just the opposite. I think you're more likely to get exactly what you're promised and then some if it is a CD.
Not when it comes to all of High Springs. I mean, as it fits into the entire community, not just the Bridlewood community, because we're here for everybody, right? So how is this going to impact all of High Springs?
Yeah, we can talk, if your concern is about the trail system and that being open, let me talk with the Bridlewood folks, because I don't fully know the background on that.
Okay,
So we'll
okay.
talk some more about that, and I may be misstating some of that just because I don't have the background on it. But if that's the concern, I think we can probably figure that out.
Okay. Anybody else?
Janet Evans. I was going to bring this up later in our agenda, but it seems pertinent right now. And what I wanted to talk about was Mr. Walker's actions that we're talking, a lot of questions are coming up here, but in the past, there's been concerns brought up about whether he's representing the people in our community, what it is with the way High Springs identifies as a small city with historic charms, and his actions suggest that he's pushing his own philosophy and maybe giving us more opinion rather than fact. And I bring this up now because I think that this is a perfect example of a situation where we're going to be looking to him for his legal opinion. And he's, as in the past, we've often let him shape the decisions made here. We've let him kind of guide us because he says, well, this is, what we hire him for is his legal opinion. But you yourself, Madam Mayor, have witnessed times when it was really just his opinion. And I think that when he invites this gentleman to come up, and he's already talked to him ahead of time, and he's kind of eases that in, and I just have to question can we trust him to have our best interests at heart in representing what the people in our community really want to have.
I think it'd be fair for me to point out to you that the representatives for the developers reached out to everybody to see if they would want to have a one-on-one conversation in advance to help us understand it. Some of us took advantage of that, some of us did not. And I'm not really sure that Mr. Walker plays any role in this particular issue at all. Mr. Walker, you could probably speak better to that, but, you know, our interaction has been with the developers' representatives.
Okay, that helps.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else?
Y'all know me, Brad Riddle, Chairman of the Plan Board. Listen to what you just said, Catherine. I wish we could have had a more in-depth conversation, the Plan Board, with what's been said tonight. And there was a lot of, I forget the gentleman's name, but anyway, there was an awful lot said tonight. I don't feel like, and I'm with Rick, I don't feel like we got the information we needed that, you know, when we cast our votes the other night. Maybe it's part of my fault that I didn't do more research and understand all this, but I don't know. It seems like you almost got to be a lawyer to understand all of this. But in saying all that, I don't know the way y'all are going to vote tonight. But I would have changed the way I voted the other night based on some of the other information I got here tonight. But one of the questions I do have for the gentleman that's been up here giving the presentation and telling you how this all works. So if I understand this right, the city will never be responsible for the infrastructure within that development, really, except for the water meters. So my question is this: if they're responsible to repave their roads in there under this, if you have a major water line break in there and the road has to be dug up, who pays for that? Does that come out of this?
My understanding is that's the city's responsibility.
That is the city's
Yes, sir.
responsibility.
Yes, sir. It says here that potable water, wastewater, reclaimed water systems, the finance and construction of the CDD, and then the final owner is the city of High Springs. So that would still be our responsibility.
So we are the final
Yes,
owner.
sir. Yes, sir, we are.
Of the like the lift station and the underground piping. and-
Yes, sir.
and all
Okay.
that.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I knew we were with the lift station.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Y'all got a tough decision to make.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
So I just wanted to speak in reference to doubling the size of High Springs and kind of like, you know, things that have already kind of been decided a long time ago. And, you know, I stood up here like 3.5 years ago and just wanted to urge you guys to think that, you know, I'm not bringing in 2,000 people, neither is he, neither is our developer. It's just the facts that people are moving to Florida. And I understand that this is a special community because I grew up in Newberry, Florida, and I came to these springs every weekend and every after school during summer, and I've loved and appreciated everything that High Springs has had to offer in this small town. However, as you have seen in other communities, they have grown and they continue to grow because there is no more land available to develop in Alachua County in the Gainesville area. And so they keep developing west, they keep developing north. What we have done is taken something that was zoned for 2,000 mobile homes and turned it into a beautiful community that's going to be sustainable, that's going to take care of its problems, and that's going to be a place that's going to be desired for people to live. We're not doing this overnight. This project is going to be anywhere from 15 to 20 years. We're setting aside 35 acres for a school. We are bringing in a firehouse or a police station, whatever is necessary. And we have really tried to work with the Springs Institute. We are really trying to work with all the owners that come in, educating them on how to protect the Florida waters. I'm part of learning myself how we can develop more responsibly. And I really want to encourage you guys to think that if any development was going to come into your town, why would you want it to be anybody but Bridlewood, people that have loved this community, people that have educated the developer since conception? Why would you want it to be anybody else? Why wouldn't you? The CDD is just to protect the community, the values of the property, the integrity of the community. This is not like whether or not like it's going to affect any outside citizen, because realistically it's not. If someone wants to move into Bridlewood, they will move into Bridlewood and they will pay the additional fees to have a nicer community. Yes, there are outliers. Tillman Acres is a beautiful community. There's other communities, Tillman Hills, beautiful community. But if there is a sinkhole that opens up, that bond will take care of those problems. That bond will restore the roads. That won't be on you. It will help your citizens that are moving here. It will help them to be able to get in and out of their homes. And if like we talk about failures and all the negatives of what has happened, but realistically, all we can control is what can happen in the future is if we set aside that money and if it's a responsible way to use those funds at a lower cost to be able to do these improvements throughout a course of 30 years. Those CDD fees will drop after the bonds are paid off. And so I just want to encourage you that if you were to have a community come in, why wouldn't you want someone that loves this community, that wants to be responsible with all the plants that are going in that are native and working with the springs and the Florida waterways?
I'd like to just make one comment if I could, please. The original zoning for that property was PD already. It was not 2,000 mobile homes. It was a PD that was approved for about 800 units over 700 acres.
There were several
There
developments.
was a 100-year-old plat that was what forced our hand because we were threatened with lawsuit. It was a 100-year-old plat that was zoned for military barracks for 1,000 units. That was not 2,000 mobile homes. It was a PD. The PD was already approved.
It was, right, and that was already in place 100 years before we came. All we did was change it into a beautiful community that the community can enjoy.
We'll
that people
agree to
moving here
disagree
can
then on the
enjoy.
approach.
Correct.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else have any comments? Yes, sir.
So I'm trying to get caught up.
Yes, sir.
Being new in this seat.
Yes, sir.
This was all done way before I got here. So was this supposed to be open to residents of High Springs? Because I kept hearing about the school and this and that.
The school.
So now, what I'm understanding, this is going to be like a gated community, just like.
I don't know if it'll be gated.
Or-
Like Cinnamon Hills is gated. I don't know if this will be gated or not, but.
I'm very familiar with how the villages work, the Dale Webbs and all that
Yes,
down
sir.
there. So is that how, I heard him mention Dale Webb. So.
I don't know who the builders will be.
No, I'm just saying, is it going to be set up like that? Is that how Bridlewood is planning to be set up, is like the Dale? I say, I know what the Villages is all about. I go down there on vacation near there. So I'm very aware of how that all was developed. So what I was asking, was this open beforehand for all residents of High Springs for using the amenities, but yet it's going to be a high level of homes and folks
So
now?
I would like to figure out what was said, because from my understanding, the private amenities for the pool and the amenity center were never going to be open to the public. They were going to be used for the community.
Okay.
Now, we cannot control, we're not gated, we cannot control people that come and walk in on the pass. There's going to be parks and paths, just like any other community. You can't control people that are coming in and out of the community to walk the trails. So I would like to actually, we would like to table this.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you guys are looking for more information. I'm uncomfortable too that you didn't feel like you had enough information. So let's talk, right? Let's spend some time together and talk some more about these issues, and we'll get some clarification on the amenities. Bear in mind, if it was a private HOA community, the entire thing could be locked off. I think the fact that it's a CDD community gives you some more options, but we'll talk and get some background on that and share some information too, and see if we can get you guys in a place where you feel like you're comfortable, because I feel like you all feel rushed and don't have all the information you
Right,
want.
and
Does
Chris
that
was
sound
here
right?
from the conception, and, we can go back on anything that was promised. We are certainly not trying to bait and switch anybody. We have really just tried to make a beautiful community and give you guys everything that you wanted for the community. We've really tried to work with you on everything that was a concern. However, I am not sure where that part came in, where the public could use the amenity centers and things of that nature. So I would like to get clarification. Chris is not here to help me with that, and neither is our developer. So we would love to talk to you guys individually, answer your questions. That was the goal. We actually didn't even know this was on the agenda for tonight. And we would really like to answer all your questions as truthfully and effectively as possible. So what we would like to do is get more clarification and come back to you with some answers.
Well, the reason why I was asking, going back to the villages, I'm not just going to be able to drive through those communities and use the golf course or the
Right.
softball fields or the pool. That's why I was kind of trying to understand where this was all going, because I don't know. I wanted to get educated on it.
Correct.
Because going down there from High Springs, they're not just going to let me roll in there and do whatever I want to in there.
No, sir, and I don't think that that would be an expectation of most. So, like I said, I would really like to figure out what was said, and if we misspoke in any way, I would like to clarify. But I really want to get you guys, I want to figure out how this all came about and answer you directly.
Gotcha, thank you.
What, out of the box thinking. I like the idea of tabling it, that way we can all educate ourselves, but I don't know if we've ever had one, but a joint commission planning meeting? Could we do something like that? And then we could have we could have you guys there, we could sit down, get members of the community to come, maybe just a special thing, just to kind of talk about this. I want people as educated as possible, because it sounds like you kind of get one or the other, and I can see the benefits to the CDD, I really can. I know everybody, I know the thoughts behind it and whatnot, but I'd like to educate myself more as well. But if I'd love to get the plan board guys in there too, and kind of sit down with all of us as a community, maybe put it in a bigger venue. We can have a Q&A session if the developer and everybody's willing to do that.
We would love to do
a
that.
good,
Walker?
honest conversation about it, and I think that'd be a fantastic way to go.
Can we do a workshop like that, Mr. Walker, somewhere? Okay.
Boom. That's my motion. Let's do it. Is that a workshop? Have a damn workshop with plan board and city commission and bring
Thank
all
you,
the
yes.
commissions
And we
together.
appreciate it. I want you to say, just me personally, I've loved High Springs. I respect what you guys are doing up here. I know that you're trying to look out for the citizens and their best interests. And just with my love and passion for the community, I want you to know that I have a special responsibility because of the position that I'm in. And I want you to know that I love this community, and I'm going to just try to bring the most beautiful community that I can to this area.
Thank you. So
Thank you.
the motion is that we're going to table this. Do we need a second on that, Mr. Walker, and vote? Or do we just table?
I want table and a workshop on the motion.
Table and workshop on the motion.
Workshops.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
Madam Mayor?
Okay.
We need a date certain that you will table it to.
Okay.
Well, is that because you're continuing the hearing on notice basis? We don't mind re-advertising, so you're not stuck with the statutory timelines and stuff.
I'll
We
have to
just
check whether we have to start all over for the 4th because we did advertise correctly. And, we did alert you all that the dates of the meeting, they knew when Plan Board was and when Commission was, so.
We don't need to, we'll re-advertise at our expense.
Okay, yeah, it's always covered by the applicant, so that, they will pay for re-advertisement, but can you clarify whether we need a date certain in this case?
If we're re-advertising, we don't need a date certain, if we're going through that process.
Okay. And just to clarify, this would be once a week for 4 weeks, so it would be at least a month out.
When is the next meeting scheduled for?
The
For
13th of June.
June 13th.
Okay, yeah.
So we couldn't do a workshop on that day because we have a meeting.
Right.
Right. And we have a meeting on June
Still
6th
could
with
do a
the,
workshop in June, and then we could reset it for July, for example.
It didn't have to be a workshop, it didn't have to be on a Thursday, right?
correct, that's true.
Workshop doesn't have to be on a Thursday, you could have it on any day.
So-
I'll make myself available for
So
most of them.
then can we proceed, Mr. Walker, accordingly with setting a date when the city clerk is able to reach out to everybody and find a date that works for everybody? Is that acceptable for a workshop and for the plan board members as well?
Yes,
Okay.
Chris, you do that and send it to us, or does it?
I can assist.
Okay. Okay, so our motion is to table this agenda item, set up a workshop for a date to be determined, and we have a second.
Mhm.
Correct. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion is tabled.
Thank y'all for coming.
Enjoy the orange and blue while you're here, sir.
It is a classy orange and blue, too.
Did you have a comment on that? I'm sorry. No, let's go. Go ahead. I don't want to not hear from somebody. I'm sorry.
I got it. No big deal. This is more of just a informational. In the time that you guys have been presenting this information, I did do a little bit of looking, and I wanted to make that looking public. Veranda Village.
Can you
that
give
is
us
a-
your name for the record? I'm sorry, please.
Apologies.
Sorry.
Nancy Piety, for the record.
Thank you.
Veranda Village, located in Estero. That's a Lennar community, not a luxury brand. They are $3,900 for the year on $325 a month in HOAs, and an additional $2,058.52 in CDD for a total of $496.54 a month. Oakmont runs $95 in just HOA. Could not find their CDD bonds. When it comes to using these types of facilities, sorry, I went with what I know, the easiest ones to find. There's a ton in Hillsborough. $24.95 to use the pool in South Shore Lagoon, and $60 a day to use all the facilities in a Wesley Chapel community, also a lagoon community. So I don't know what the plan is for what kind of amenities we're talking about, but that's what the general is. And they do allow the public to come in, but it's $60 a day.
For everything though, right?
But that's what.
Yeah, that's the trails, the
that's
pool.
what- that's-
It's an additional cost of almost $400 to rent a cabana.
And I think those are good points and good questions to ask. I would just point out too, this is a different market than Estero and some of these other areas. And we're not proposing a lagoon, for example. So we'll see if we can come back with some comps that you guys have some better information. So, and that's a good question.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Before I move on, I want to just let everybody know there's some folks that came in after the meeting started, that item number 5 has been taken off the agenda, the special permit for the brewery. And I figured some of you might be here to discuss that, but that was taken off the agenda at the advice of our attorney, advises that legally we cannot do that, unfortunately. So I just want to make sure everybody knew that. All right, so next on the agenda, item number 3. Discuss, consider, and act on Anytime Fitness site plan.
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
Can
ma'am.
I explain the project?
Yes, ma'am.
So Anytime Fitness is a site plan. It is located a little north of Tractor Supply, but south of Boat Ramp Road. They are zoned commercial, so C1. They're allowed a gym by right. So they've submitted their site plan. They went through site plan review internally, and then they went to the plan board and they recommended approval. They do have a lighting plan, which will be, we have a certain code in our land development code where it can't exceed certain heights and it can't spill over onto adjacent properties that are, like residentially zoned, because behind them there is a subdivision. So there is a significant setback. There will be landscape, so it will not shine directly into the neighbors, which was important. So they do meet our code for that. The buffer along the back will be a mixture of live oak and crepe myrtle. So there should not be any spillage. I just wanted to make sure you all were aware of that point, that it should not impact the neighbors. As the safety lights are, this is a 24-hour facility. It's an Anytime Fitness. It means anytime. So it will not affect those homeowners in the back. Otherwise, they're along the highway, where you do see commercial. They meet our land development code, and we see no issues with it at this time.
Okay. Did you want to present anything, or?
Here's Bill Menadier with Menadier Engineering. I think staff did a great job introducing the project. I can answer any questions you may have, but we worked extensively with staff to meet the requirements.
Gentlemen, do you have questions?
That was one of my huge questions was the lighting, and I'm hoping that we can get y'all to volunteer to do the what is that, the night
Dark sky
lighting.
Dark sky lighting.
If that's a possibility, just to preserve that, 'cause it's right by the river. We got that neighborhood right there. That's my main concern. I'm not concerned with much else. I'm really concerned about the lighting coming off of it.
one of the owners is here. She may.
Oh, I can't answer that question specifically. We will definitely, if there's is it more like a specific light bulb, like the type of light
It
coming
allows you
off?
to still be able to see. It basically stops the glow from
Yes,
spreading,
sir. So
spilling
I
over
worked
onto
for
everything else.
the Cedar Hill Conservancy, is a nonprofit that works with lighting along the shorelines, and they use a red light like that. So it's definitely something that's interchangeable that we can definitely look into to protect the wildlife around for sure.
Thank you.
But my name is Taylor Sawyer, and I'm here with our engineer as well as my mother-in-law. I just wanted to introduce us. We're just a small town family. My husband, we have a 2-year-old son, and we're just excited to be part of this community and be able to provide health and fitness facility and needs for this community, as there's not a lot here, and just to be active parts of the community, engaging in events and different activities and things like that.
Yeah, I think my only question was, is there only one way to get inside of the facility? Like from 441, is there only one way to get in? Because I know Tractor Supply is kind of weird if you're headed towards Fort White, it's kind of weird to get inside of there. So that's the only concern that I have is there only one way to get in? Yeah.
Yes, sir. There's one driveway. It's a full access driveway permitted through DOT.
Yeah, DOT is not going to let you do anything but one point of ingress and egress, I'm guessing. Is there any plan for a left-hand turn lane there at all?
Not at this time. The trip generation didn't warrant that.
Okay.
I think if we keep putting stuff right there, they're going to have to.
You're going to have to eventually, yeah. Gentlemen, any other questions?
No, ma'am.
I saw you guys Monday night, and I like to piggyback on the soil boring logs and the perk rate for that retention pond, given that it's right there by the residents. It's a big old retention pond.
It's shallow though, so obviously with the soil borings, they test where the estimated seasonal high water table is going to be, and then of course the percolation rates. Being adjacent to FDOT, we had to model their storm events, which I want to say is like 48 storms that we modeled for that, and we designed it for the pre and the post conditions. So currently, the property slopes to the south as it does, and so we are able to model and get a volume and a rate of discharge currently, sheet flowing off the site, and then we designed the post condition to be less than that. And so we've met all that. Water Management District's permitted, DOT's permitted, and the City of High Springs has reviewed it.
So there's no concern for, overflow going into that residence, into that neighborhood?
No, ma'am, and actually there's very minimal discharge. The Water Management District requires us to have an emergency overflow. So they require 1 foot of freeboard, and then they require an emergency overflow. So it's quite
have a rib?
conservative.
Is there a rib out there with the?
Is there what?
A rapid infiltration basin? What are you
No,
talking
no,
about?
no, no.
Emergency overflow? What is that?
The overflow structure, the weir that you see.
Yeah, okay.
Is required by Water Management District regardless of if we're discharging or not.
Okay.
And they require 1 foot of freeboard, so there's extreme conservancy in the Swanee River Water Management District requirements.
Okay. Christy, did we have any engineer comments from Midtower at all on these?
So there was a few which have been addressed, and a couple of them are being coordinated through Public Works, because there was some talk of Midtower questioned why it was a privately owned
Lift station?
right?
Right.
Which, when talking to Public Works in our site plan review committee meeting, it is preferred in this instance because then we don't have to maintain it. It's not
Right.
a cost to us. It's better for it to be on them than
Right.
us. So as long as Public Works was still fine with that, which they were, there was the comment for the lighting plan, which they then provided. And then just a couple of other coordination things, like make sure you get all your permits prior to construction and things like that. But I can send you the engineer's comments if you would like them. I can email.
I wouldn't mind seeing them, but I mean, they've already been addressed. That's my main
Right.
Correct.
So,
concern.
and I can speak a little further to that. There were 3 of them. One was with the ownership and maintenance, and obviously with a single service connection, it only makes sense that the owners will own and maintain the grinder pump station up to the right-of-way line, right, where we connect to the force main. The second was the photometric plan, which we provided. Obviously, most of the development is pushed up against 441, so we've got an extreme buffer between the neighborhood and the photometric plan shows we don't have any bleed over on the foot candle in that direction. The third item was regarding the pressure in the force main where we're tying in. And so typically, with a grinder pump station, you know, we pump against 30 foot ahead, and I can get nerdy with it if you want to on that. But they want us to confirm the pressure in the force main and that the pumps that we size will be adequate to operate, and we'll do that.
Those are the only questions I had. There's a lot of people buzzing about it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of excitement in town right now. Gentlemen, any other questions? Any questions from the audience?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, Council, and City Manager. Dale Jenkins, River Run Plantation. I'm interested in this project because my property actually adjoins the development. A lot of the questions have been answered for me. Christy was wonderful yesterday, showing me all the site plans. She's a great public servant. I know you're proud to have her. But I just have two things left. I'm fine with the stormwater. I know we can't do anything about the traffic because that's DOT, but boy, I'll tell you, you need turn lanes out there with Tractor Supply and now Anytime Fitness.
We
But
agree with you 100%.
yeah, but my two concerns, one of them was answered, three concerns. Illumination, I've looked at the lighting plan. It appears as that that's not going to be a problem in our neighborhood. And the other ones are landscape. So the landscape plan is okay, but, you know, there's just 3 live oaks across that west side and I think 4 or 5 crepe myrtles, whatever, mostly bushes that grow to a height of about 4 feet. So that's not going to do much. I would appreciate consideration by the developer to put more crepe myrtles back there maybe, you know, so, and it looks like the live oaks are supposed to be 10 feet when they're planted. I think I've got that right. That would be good, but more trees, less bushes, I think would be better to buffer our neighborhood. I think that would be a good consideration. And the other thing is a 24-hour facility, so I'm a little concerned about security. Now, I looked on the website for Anytime Fitness, and it appears at the facility in Alachua, it says 24-hour security. I don't know what that means, but is there going to be an individual on that property throughout a 24-hour period? I don't know that.
I think it's just, I would totally be speculating, so I don't think there's anybody there, no. But that's up to you, 100%.
I tried to find that out. I couldn't find out.
Sure. So there will not be someone securing the location. Self-Esteem Brands is who owns Anytime Fitness. They have their own security company that they use throughout every single one of their Anytime Fitnesses that monitors in and out, who's around, who's on the property. The lighting has a lot to do with that. It is very secure. They would not be one of the top franchises if they did not have good security. And again, it is their own company security. I don't know the name of it, but it's Self-Esteem Brands is the owner of that company.
It's video monitoring?
Yes, yes.
Motion activated, I'm assuming at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, and everything is key fobbed in, so you do have to have a key or a special device on your phone to be able to get inside of the gym. And then as owners, we have full access to 24/7 checking in, as well as seeing who has come in and out through the key fob. And then if people trickle in behind somebody, we're able to see that pretty immediately, and then can notify any law enforcement that we would need at that time.
Okay.
So I hope.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Jenkins?
So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate the commission's time.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to add a little to the landscaping. The buffer on the west side has a specific requirement, you know, so many trees per 100 feet. But we also had to mitigate for some of the trees that had to be removed within the footprint of our development. And so we had to add, I want to say like 32 additional trees, and we put them along the parking lot area. So there's a lot more trees. It's just not right up against that property boundary. So we've provided pretty extensive.
So the trees are
landscaping.
close to the facility, not on the border of the retention pond, is what you're saying?
They
As
kinda
much.
surround
There's
the-
still some there.
They kind of surround the retention pond, and then of course they line that western boundary.
Okay.
So on the landscape plan, they did put the buffer, which is 10 feet wide, near the property line, but they did also put it around the retention pond and around the parking lot. So it's kind of like a double buffer if you think about it. It'll be the ones that line the parking lot, and then the stormwater area, and then the buffer again. So it's multiple trees.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Anybody else have questions or comments? All right. Gentlemen?
I make a motion that we approve the site plan for Anytime Fitness. This would definitely be a benefit for me. 'Cause I won't have to drive the games with Health and Fitness.
Do we have a second? All right, it has been properly moved and seconded that we approve Anytime Fitness site plan. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? It is approved, 5-0. Thank you. Vice Mayor Grunder requests a 5-minute recess, if everybody's okay with that. So we'll just recess for a couple minutes. Thank you for coming. All right, we'll reconvene at 8:38. Our next item on the agenda is, what's that? Sorry. Need a little bit more muscle there. Oh, but Mr. Walker's not here. Should we wait for Mr. Walker? Well, I'm sure he can catch up. The next item on the agenda is discuss, consider, and act on conditional use permit CUP 24-01. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I try to speak right into it. Is that better? Okay. We are discussing, considering, and acting on conditional use permit CUP 24-01. That is a conditional use for expansion of an existing gas station to include a car wash and non-ethanol fuel dispensary. Ms. Christie, do you want to present for us?
This is located, if you're going south on Main, it is the gas station that's by Post Springs Road. They intend to expand to the two small parcels to their south. They're roughly 0.4-ish acres. So this is a conditional use, which means you have a little more control over things that go there. You could say yay or nay on it. Also assign conditions if you so choose. So I know that we've had a lot of traffic issues over by Post Springs Road, and we are still trying to get that light if we can, there was some issues with the reporting of crashes over there that kind of affected us not getting it right now, but we're still trying. But I think this would actually help with that because there will be an additional access to the south, so it'll kind of get the pressure off of Post Springs intersection. More people can exit through the south, and there will be less backup there, I would believe. The plan board reviewed this, and they did recommend approval with the condition that a fence be added on the backside where it adjoins the residential area, just for a little extra buffer. I know it's an existing gas station, but they still wanted that little bit of more privacy for the owner that's back there. Right now, it's just one house. So that's kind of a little rundown of the project.
Owner been advised, since it's an adjacent property, do they know what's going on?
So there was a sign on site. There was an ad in the paper. I do not know if the applicant directly contacted them. However, there's not too many changes to the parcel that they're really, they're near it, but it's still quite a bit of a buffer there, and they'll still have a landscape plan, and you guys will see that if this moves forward. You'll still get a site plan, which will follow our regulations for the amount of trees, the amount of bushes, things like that. I can definitely reach out to the applicant and ask if they've talked to the homeowner. We could also mail them a copy of this if that's what you would like us to do, but I mean, there was a sign on site and the ad in the paper.
Gentlemen, do you have any questions?
No, but I want to thank the planning board. I like that idea of the fence going up right there. I really do. So I want to thank them for coming up with that. I love the idea
More
of getting some
items.
ethanol-free gas in High Springs, so I can stop spending my money out somewhere else for boat gas.
Since the attorney's back, I believe he does need to read it by title only, correct? The CUP, the conditional use permit, since it's a ordinance, doesn't he need to read it? Or is it a resolution? I thought he might need to read it in. The gas station,
Christie?
yes, sir.
Okay. And yes, this would be quasi.
Okay, sorry.
So anyone that desires to talk about the next item on the agenda, which is the conditional use for expansion of an existing gas station to include car wash and non-ethanol fuel dispensary, if you'll stand up, raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth? The witnesses have been sworn.
Okay.
Next, we talk about, is there any ex parte communications, Madam Mayor?
None for me.
Me neither.
No.
Christie, if you'll present.
He did.
Oh, you already
Sorry.
did, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Okay. Then if there's anybody else
I
that
don't
wishes
think-
to.
I did have one question.
Yes, sir.
conditional use permits, what all can actually be done with a conditional use permit? Like, is it only commercial, or can residential actually be permitted through conditional use?
I don't think I've ever.
Yeah, I was just asking because I know, some citizens, when we have permits, they want to know, okay, well, what else could actually go there if we didn't approve a certain thing?
In this instance, it's for a very specific use.
Okay.
So your conditions are, does this particular use fit in this property? And you have quite a lot of discretion to approve or not approve this conditional use permit.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions? Questions from the audience?
From the planning board, just to let you know, one of the things that the members of that board were kind of stuck on and asked quite a bit of questions is about the water usage there with the car wash. So I just wanted to let you know, I didn't hear anybody mention that, but it's a recycle. They're capturing the water and recycling it, filtering it. So was I think the thing that probably impressed us the most about the car wash part of it. Where's the water going? It's all been, taking, thank you.
I had that question right here. Recycle water. So that minimizes the use of clean water, drinking water, so that's good. Any other comments or questions? Okay, gentlemen?
I make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit.
Second.
All right, it has been properly moved and seconded that conditional use permit CUP 24-01 be approved. Roll call vote, please, ma'am. Yes?
Yes.
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 All right, thank you. All right. Yes, ma'am?
You all want to include the plan board's recommendation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yes. I think that was an excellent idea.
Add that to the motion.
Thank you, sir. All right, next we have, going into budget season, discussing a whole bunch of RFPs. Number 6 on the agenda, discuss, consider, and act on an RFP or RFQ for city attorney services. We've discussed this before, and I think wisely, Vice Mayor Grunder and former Commissioner DePonis said that now's not the time, and I absolutely understood that. But now that we're going into budget season, I'm thinking that we need to get our ducks in a row and do what we can to make the most of the dollars that we have. Questions, gentlemen? Any questions from the audience? Any comments? All right. Gentlemen, what's your pleasure? Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Is this regarding the attorneys?
The RFP, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
It's putting out an RFP. That's what's the agenda item right now.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
And the RFP, can you tell me what that means?
A request for proposal or request for qualifications?
Yes. Janet Evans. I had some specific notes the last time that this was brought up, where we talked about Mr. Walker's wheelhouse as it pertained to Bridlewood development. I'm just going to kind of go through some of the things here that I had in my notes, and then we can come back if there's enough time to talk about what we talked about, the 80%, 20. I don't know if you recall that conversation. I think I ran for the commissioner seat 4 years ago. I had 1,000 people vote for me. I feel like I have a little bit of a feel for what the people that I at least spoke with were looking for. We need an attorney that not only protects the city, but also presents the legal argument that supports the city's residents' wishes, and feel that our attorney represents the client in many of these cases. Suggestions are made that seem to be closed to discussion and often talk about stuff rather than succinctly answering questions. And that was one of the things that I mentioned earlier when we specifically ask about a topic. Mr. Walker tends to lead the discussion as opposed to answering specific questions. So also concerns me that the decisions we've seen here, well, like I say, are directed. I can give you specific examples. For example, that you, Madam Mayor, requested to have the mural ordinance tightened up, and you brought a number of examples from other cities, and you requested that these be looked at and considered into tightening up our own ordinances here for the city. And he came back and not one single item that you had asked to have included was even considered. And as a result, you know, the same thing when the building team came up with their conclusions on the rules. We asked this committee to get together and come up with their rules on what the mural ordinance would look like. And that weekend, the brewery folks came up with a mural on that side of the building, and Mr. Walker allowed it, saying that that building was not considered part of the historic property because it was made of cinder blocks and metal, versus, whereas the definition of a historic area is made by the miles in an area, and not by what the building is made out of.
Do you have notes that you could give to Angela that you could copy for us if you want, if you've got more?
Well, I don't have anything that I'd want to have copied.
Okay.
They're kind of in fact, that's what they are. These are
Okay.
a culmination of notes that I took over the last 4 years as we've discussed these
Okay.
different things. And this confidence that the community has from my reading the pulse on the community is not good. And as seen with this Bridlewood stuff coming back up again, how do we know that he's got our best interest at heart and not just doing what he thinks is the best? I know when you had talked about a discussion about the Supreme Court decisions and that they're all, even at that level, they're all
Sure.
just someone's opinion. And
If you want to leave any notes with Angela so we could all read them, we'd be happy to.
All right,
Thank you, appreciate it. Anybody else?
Linda Jones. I've been one of the two who have been voting to have the attorney's firm of Scott Walker, I'm sorry, I don't remember the.
Olds Walker.
Replaced, because I, as a commissioner, did not feel like I was getting proper representation. I didn't feel comfortable talking with him. I consistently felt like there was bias, that I couldn't reach him. And I often had conversations with him on the dais stating that he would start on something, and I'd say, that's not my question. My question is. So I didn't feel comfortable getting the information that I needed frequently. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Sue Weller, I really don't think this is the time to do this. You know, you have 4 relatively new commissioners, and you have an attorney that understands and knows the background of the city and all the different things that are going to be coming up before the commissioners. If you want to do an RFQ, an RFP, then you can do it later. I just do not think that this is the time. You have too many new people up here on the commission, and the knowledge that the city attorney has, I think, is something that you need to depend upon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean Coles, resident, High Springs. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for letting me speak. Just as a citizen, I want to echo Ms. Wheeler. I think that this probably would not be the greatest time to be looking at an RFP, as we do have the majority of the council here being new. And from what I've seen, it seems that Mr. Walker has been very fair and just and has given good guidance. So I disagree with some of what I heard tonight, and I'm in favor of keeping our attorney. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Can I add one more thing, please?
No, you've already spoken. I'm sorry. Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Gentlemen, how do you want to proceed?
I did want to ask a question. As far as putting out an RFP, that doesn't necessarily mean that Scott is just automatically just out, right?
No. No, my understanding is that, you know, an RFP or an RFQ would be issued, and certainly Folds Walker would be, you know, encouraged to respond to that as well. And it may be that they are the most cost-effective, most experienced, because certainly nobody's arguing with their experience, firm that's out there. But we don't know. I think it's been a long time since we've had several of these things put out for bid. But if we're only proving to ourselves that we're getting the best deal around town, then I think that's worthwhile to do that too. Because we may well be. Any other questions, Joe?
Is this something we do for all, I see there's another one here. Is it something we do for most of our services, outside services?
We haven't for a while, and that's why we're talking about it tonight. Like, you know, there are other things here where we've got vendors that have been doing great work, but, you know, there's a lot of money out there that we're spending, and we may or may not be able to get a better price. But we don't know. You know, it's kind of like if you use Dish Network or you use DirecTV or you use Cox, you're going to look at all of the different options, and it may be what you have is the best one there is. That's entirely possible, absolutely. But it's just putting it out there to see what we might be able to get.
Okay.
Yeah, and then just for everybody to know, as far as putting out a RFP, it's not like a bid cost. I called to find out that today. It's about $75 to $100 per week per ad. So it's not that big of a cost if we do decide to do that, just for those to know.
That's good information to have. Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments?
Is this something we as a commission would make a decision, or Jeremy, the city manager? How does that go?
The city attorney is a charter officer, so that is a decision that would come to the commission.
Okay.
The other RFPs for analytical laboratory services, that would be something that would be administratively discussed. We may be looped in, we may not. You know, I don't know.
Okay.
That would be up to Mr. Marshall to decide.
I don't see where it'd be a wrong to look to see if we can save the city any money. I don't know. I'm open for whatever to know.
Question. So, Madam Finance Director, isn't this something we can do later on in the process when we go through our budgetary process and see where we at financially, what's costing us? Is that something we can do during the budget season? 'Cause right now, I don't know what we're planning. Mr. Walker. So
Madam Mayor,
making that
Diane
decision
Wilson,
just
Finance
there.
Director. It's really up to the commission when they would like to move forward with that. When we do come to you in July with our budget meetings, we would like to be close to our final product at that time. So if we were to do it, we'd probably want to do it sooner than later, or just wait till the next budget, not include it as part of the budget discussion. That probably didn't help.
I'm not in favor
That
of
probably
it.
didn't help you.
I'm not in favor for
Sorry.
right now. I think it's something that we can wait till later, once we get into the budget season, and we can start looking at different avenues, or if we can save some money. I just don't know. I'm not just sitting here looking at this tonight.
So as a follow-up to that, to Commissioner Williams, then, if we went through the budget process and finalized the budget, and then we found a couple different avenues where we would be able to save money potentially, would we have to do a budget amendment at that time then?
We could absolutely do a budget amendment. That's not an issue at all.
So you
right,
don't see there being
can s-
value having that going into the budget season?
We always like to see where we can save money going in, especially now.
Right.
It would just help us to maybe do other, again, I don't think it's going to be a huge amount of money, but any savings helps us.
Mhm.
We're really counting pennies at this point, so.
We have a motion, or or do we table this?
We table it till a later date till we can, I don't see a reason to right now.
There's a motion on the floor to table this to a later date.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to table the RFP or RFQ for attorney services. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, we'll table the attorney RFP. Next item of business, discuss, consider, and act on an RFP or RFQ for IT support services. Again, this is a budgetary issue. Mr. Marshall may be able to give us some, I know you've met with the IT folks. I don't know if you've got any input.
I have. So, going through this budget process, first let me start. We just did the preliminary, very, very rough draft of the budget. Anything that we can save will go a long way. Meeting with Emerald Data, with Eric May from Emerald Data, a lot of what you see is our licensing and software cost. It's been rolled up, so we got a better, accurate picture of what IT is costing us. Because we're not doing a lot of last minute things, and we're being more proactive with our IT needs, Emerald Data has cut their service costs. I don't remember if it was 14 or 17%, but they actually charge us for a service cost has been cut down. So Eric has been trying to find ways to save us money there. Again, same thing as what we just spoke before. Anything that we could save would be great. I just want you to know that when you're looking at that IT budget, most of it is our fixed costs. Fixed costs? Fixed costs. Fixed costs. However, the police chief, Chief Shepard, wrote something, and he asked that we allow Sergeant Taylor to read just some comments about the IT part. You got that, Sergeant Taylor? Yes, sir. Would you mind reading that? Is that okay with you, Madam Mayor?
Oh, yes, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commissioner, City Manager. All right, so I got a document here prepared by Chief Shepard that I'm here to deliver tonight. So, the Hot Springs Police Department has been fortunate to maintain a strong and reliable relationship with our current IT provider, Emerald Data, for over a decade. As with all criminal justice organizations, we are subject to technical audits by the state every 3 years or when necessary to ensure compliance standards are met. The objective of FDLE CJIS technical audits is to verify compliance with the policies and regulations of the Florida Crime Information Center and the National Crime Information Center, adherence to the FDLE Non-Criminal Justice User Agreement, and FBI security policy. In 2014, Mr. Eric May and I were confronted, in 2014, Mr. Eric May and Chief Shepard were confronted and inherited 14 technical difficulties as pointed out by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement during a technical audit. However, through our collaborative efforts and proactive approach, they successfully resolved these issues, leading to the subsequent audits that resulted in perfect scoring under the Emerald Data oversight. As you know, the role of IT providers in policing operation is crucial. Both federal and state entities regulate the criteria and management of law enforcement databases and the practices. Their support ensures our efficiency and effectiveness in serving the community, but importantly, our safety and existence as a law enforcement entity. Anything from me?
Appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sergeant Taylor. Again, I've been working with Eric May, trying to kind of get some of our IT costs down, and I'd be happy to answer any questions or get any information that you want as far as our current contract, or get a better feel where you want our IT services to go.
Are they still billing us on a lump sum basis now for providing services every month?
They are.
Okay. They've always been very responsive and very helpful for me, so this is not a service issue for me by any means. And I don't know if you want me to read what Eric.
I would echo that. Talking with the staff, the Emerald Data has been very responsive, and they really break, listen, IT stuff, they break it down pretty easy for me to understand. So I definitely would like to echo it's not a service thing, but if the commission decides to go forward with it, it may be a cost savings thing. I honestly doubt there's gonna be a cost savings in there, but it's definitely worth a look if that's what you so decide.
Again, it's just, for me, in terms of getting costs out every 7 or 8 years is just, I think, a good idea, but, you know, we work with an IT firm in Gainesville for my day job, and they're very expensive. They're very good, but they're very expensive, so I don't think Emerald Data is quite on that level, but I know that they're right here too, so, you know, I mean, if you feel that the value added there in terms of service, because you guys know way better than we do what their service is, you know, every day. And if you don't feel that there's a potential cost savings there that would be worth going to this effort, then, you know, if he's already working on cutting costs, then I have no problem with tabling this.
He has been working on cutting cost. Not really for me to say whether we should go with this RFP or not. It's not really that's not in my purview. I don't believe. I feel it'd be inappropriate for me to say that. I will say though, and that the services, for what we're paying, we're getting good service. It's gonna be hard to beat.
Okay. Gentlemen, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I'll say since he's working on ways to cut costs, once we get to budget, we'll be able to see how much he actually is saving us. And then that way we can determine from there if this needs to be done or not.
Okay.
I'd agree. Emerald Data has been nothing but awesome to us. We've had issues, and they've come in immediately, swiftly, and done it professionally. I happen to live near Eric and have, on more than one occasion, at 3 in the morning when I was coming home from my midnight shift, seen police cars in his driveway with him out there in the middle of the night with his working on that computer and getting them right back into service. And let me tell you something, that's amazing for them to have, because I can tell you when I go for GPD, I don't have that. So it's nice to be able to say, well, I'll just call Eric, he'll get up and he'll come fix my computer. And, you know, that's coming from, he's got a bunch of employees, and that's coming from an individual who owns the company. So that's pretty remarkable service right there. So I think we'd be doing a disservice to them, especially with what they've already cut, in order to try to look outside at this point.
Anybody else with an officer in their driveway at 3 in the morning, that story ends a little differently, I think. So.
My wife normally throws things at me at 3 in the morning with an officer in her driveway.
All right.
That was a joke, everybody. I thought it was pretty good. It was rough. It's late tonight. We got to go.
Gentlemen, any other questions or comments? Any comments from the audience or questions? All right. Anybody have a motion to table or?
I make
as
a
you
motion,
wish?
we table.
Okay.
Second.
All right. It has been properly moved and seconded that we table the RFP for IT services. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? And I'm going to, for the record, not read what Eric May sent to be read in case, since we're tabling it anyway. Mr. Walker, should I give this to Angela so that she can include it in the record, though? You know, he wasn't here because he's at home alone with 4 kids, so we need to feel a little sorry for him right now, so. All right. I will give this to Angela then. All right, next on the agenda is discuss, consider, and act on an RFP or RFQ for analytical laboratory services for both water and wastewater permit-required sampling and testing.
Who does this first now?
AEL, Advanced Environmental Laboratories in Gainesville. And if I may, this is something that I can speak to a little bit. I don't think they're giving us poor service, but I think there's significant opportunity to get better pricing and at least equal or better quality. And this is, just for the record, this is not about me trying to get laboratory services to my husband's laboratory. Yes, he is a potable water chemist for the city of Gainesville, but his laboratory cannot do what we need, and this has nothing to do with him, so let's just get that out there. There are labs that are out there that could do most of what they do. I'm certain that we could get better pricing on some of these things. Some of the analytical we would need to keep with them, like our bacteriological sampling that we do, because it's very short hold. They have to be done in 24 hours, and it doesn't make sense to go beyond our borders. But the other stuff that they're doing, the nutrients and all of the routine analytical, I signed an invoice or a check today, and one of the parameters wasn't even run in the appropriate holding time. So the data is not really valid because they didn't do it within the 7 days they had to do it in. And I think that putting this RFP together, you give them copies of your permits, and they give you pricing, and it would be pretty easy to digest. But I feel strongly that we could get better pricing and at least equal quality, if not better.
Yeah, now this particular item, I do agree that we should put it out before budget because this is a big item when we do come to budget that we struggle in. So I do think that this should be done before the budget happens.
Anybody else?
Does our Public Works have any preference, or?
I don't have anything to compare it to. I think we should look into it.
Good enough for me.
Anybody from the audience have any questions or comments? All right. Gentlemen, do we have a motion?
Make a motion that we send out the RFP or RFQ for analytical laboratory services.
Second.
All right, it has been properly moved and seconded that we issue an RFP for analytical laboratory services. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. City Attorney report and update, sir.
Nothing to report, Madam Mayor.
All right. Mr. Marshall?
I will have quite a bit to report.
Okay.
I'll try to make it quick. And I wanted to remind everybody that this week was EMS and Public Works Week. That this was EMS and Public Works Week. Just for example, our Public Works guys were called out and they were out to 1 o'clock this morning fixing water main break, right? Water main break, and then as they fixed it, it wasn't getting pressure, and they went down a little further and realized there was another break. So 1 o'clock in the morning, they were out doing it, and our EMS, hey, they make my job real easy. Our fire, our police, all of our EMS, hats off to them. Through a donation through Publix, we were able to, Angela was able to coordinate and got lunches over for them and to say thank you. Want to report that our CRA manager, Amy, has completed her training, and she's now an official Florida redevelopment professional, which is huge. She's learned a lot, and she's teaching all of us a lot about CRA. Kevin has teamed up with Alachua County's Emergency Management and the University of Florida College of Journalism and Communications, and they beta tested this new, how do you explain it, Kevin? This new system on how to get alerts out even quicker to more people. They got to subscribe to that though, right? Just gets the information out. Yeah. So that'll get the information out to the people a little bit quicker. We received almost $31,000 from the state for hurricane general activity. Went into the general fund, and then we received $45,000 from FEMA for the assistance that our fire department did for Swanee after the hurricane, and that's been posted to the fire fund. Generator update. Actually, I'll come back to that. I'll come back up to that. Wastewater plant update. So we're at a little over 40%. They say it's going to be done on time. Diane sent, has some questions on the finances about an extra $125,000 and some change orders and stuff that came up. So we're digging in to see where we're at on budget. We're close. Nothing super alarming, but we're just trying to figure out where every penny is going on that. They replaced all but one of the sinkholes, right, Jason? And they're pressure testing them, and they're holding water. And then basins 1 and 2, as long as everything goes right, will be getting lined. Yep. While I'm on that, you guys got any questions for Jason on that project? No. I'm meeting with the engineers next week on an update. Reminder that on June 6th at 6:30 is the joint city-county meeting. We had an agenda meeting, nothing real crazy coming out of it. And the Economic Development Advisory Committee is requested to meet, have a meeting held here on the 27th at City Hall to discuss the economic development needs of all the municipalities here in Alachua County. And the subcommittee for that would like either myself or an elected official who can explain the needs and wants of the High Spring residents. I'm happy to go to that, but if an elected official wants to go, I would welcome that. Or if you have any input on the economic development needs of the city, I'd be all ears so I can bring some stuff up. And lastly, today, Chief Peters and Kevin and myself met with staff from Newberry, and we are, because me and Chief Peters are coming 3/4 in the way to this inter-service agreement with the county about us providing services for fire calls out into outside city limits and them coming in, mutual aid, and we're working on coming up with an agreement with the county for that. Generator update. I want to get a feel from you guys on what you want to do about these generators. So we got them, and 3 of them have natural gas ran out to it, and they're going to be hooked up, I think, next week, right, Jason? So 3 of them are going to be up. The other 3, there's no natural gas. So we got to convert these to propane. We have some quotes. Came in a little less than I thought they would. It wasn't as bad as I thought. But one of the things with the quotes, and I'm trying to weigh out our option, what the best option is to rent a tank. We gotta rent these tanks. They're $600 a month per tank. Right, Jason? $600 a month per tank? Does that sound right? What's that? So we'll get the exact numbers for the update. We're not gonna be getting all this done, this week. Is whether we wanted to, it's gonna be a while for natural gas. I met with GRU. They're not getting natural gas ran out to those other 3 generators anytime soon. So do we want to take on another rental cost of these tanks? Or do we want to buy these tanks? We're buying the tanks, I think just as a guesstimate, we're between $6,000 and $7,000 a piece. We buy 3 of them. Or do we rent them out month to month? We'll get the cost of what that is. But I want you to start thinking, do we want to rent these tanks or do we want to buy these tanks? Because they're going to be a longer term solution instead of a short term Band-Aid. So just some thought on that, and I'll get the more cost to you on that for the next commission meeting. And that's my manager's report.
Thank you. Commissioner Bloodsworth, you have anything?
Am I able to ask him a question on that? What is the lifespan? Do we know a lifespan on the tanks? As far as if we pay $6,000, or we got a 10, 20-year lifespan, are we checking in on that?
Great question. I'll find out.
Okay.
When I find out the cost, we'll find out what the lifespan is on it. Okay.
But yeah, I'd like to also thank Jason and Richard. Our Boy Scout troop Tuesday went and visited the waterworks and the wastewater. They're working on a soil and water conservation merit badge, and we had to go visit those, and they were very helpful on showing us doing water sampling such as that right there. So we enjoyed it.
And I did have a question too about that. Is it $600 per tank or for all 3?
Let me get those costs for you.
Because in a year we're paying $7,200.
I was under the
so we might as well
understanding
buy
that
one.
it's $600 per month per tank, but I could be wrong. Let me clarify that.
All right. So my comment is my employee of the week is Miss April Roberts in our utility supervisor. She runs a tight ship, and I like it, so she is my employee of the week.
Love it.
On the next year deal, so you don't have to subscribe to anything, because I got that thing on my phone today, and I refuse to just click on anything on my phone now. So do we have to subscribe? Do we have to do anything? You taking care of that?
We initially launched Nixle, we encouraged people to sign up through text message only. And when we jumped on with the state of Florida's Alert Florida contract with Everbridge, it opened up more capabilities within the system. So if people didn't go on and customize their account when they just signed up via texting the zip code to the 888-777 number, we didn't have their address or their information. So by making a new account, for lack of a better term, with our new platform, this enables us to deliver neighborhood level alerts. So if there is a specific emergency in your neighborhood, you will get that alert. If we don't have your address, then we can't give you that neighborhood level alert. So it's really important that people go online to hsalerts.com and just make that new account.
Okay.
And put in all their information to make sure that we can deliver that. The perfect example is a boil water notice. So if it's confined to a small geographical area, we want to make sure that we can hit all those people. And, these opt-in programs are only as good as the information that we have. So the more information that we have, the more people that we can get to opt in, the better our messaging will be, and the more effective, our communication will be, that we can let them know what's happening. So it's really, really important that people go online and do that and finish out that account. So it's the same system, same back end. It's the same entity and the same person running it, me. And it's, again, all that same information you were getting and now more.
Okay. Yeah, just let it be careful with these phones these days. We're linking to something you ain't got no business linking on to. Second, I don't know who can answer this question. The Douglas Community Center, how far along are we? Because I know them young ladies that's having the Douglas reunion is trying to see can we have a grand opening during that time. And for those that don't know what that building is, that used to be the cafeteria for the school when I was yay big, and that's the last part of that school, and it's very dear to the community heart. I mean, I can smell the cinnamon rolls cooking out when they have cooking real food. No, I'm sorry, but you can smell the cinnamon rolls. You can smell the rolls cooking. I mean, you can smell the food. It was a real meal, a real meal. So it's very dear to our hearts. And if any way possible, we could do some kind of opening for that Douglas reunion, that would be fantastic. It's June, I want to say the end of June. Yeah, I know somebody asked me that question. I didn't bring no information with me. But Cassandra Davis would be the person to talk to, because she's on the rec board. Anybody? No.
Mm-hmm.
She's on that board.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And she would have all the, you on there with her? Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know who's kind of overseeing that now, the renovation of that building. Come on,
They're coming in probably tomorrow, so they scheduled them to be installed Tuesday of next week, and then hopefully Wednesday or Thursday, they can get their permanent CO.
Okay, that'd be great. I'm thinking the union sometime in June, end of June, I'm thinking.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
It'll be done by then.
No, that's not, that's nothing to do with Juneteenth now. This is the Douglas High School reunion. Yeah, yeah. All right. That'd be great if we could. That'd be so wonderful if we could have sometime. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir.
No, I just want to thank staff. You guys are doing a great job. Public Works, I know it's not easy. You guys are working hard. EMS, appreciate those guys for sure. The one thing that I do have on my radar that's upset me a little bit is that we apparently have run out of room for the robotics club, and their stuff's getting moved around and maybe not working like it should anymore, and they're feeling very underappreciated. I've had several citizens call me very concerned about this, which made me very concerned about it, because if we're not going to take care of our kids, we don't have a lot right now going on, and if we're not going to do something to help them out, and we need to find a space for them, because I know that another town has reached out to them trying to pull them, and if we get something else pulled from this town kid-wise, eventually we're going to lose all of our kid stuff, and then what good are we? So I want to make sure that I'm going to task you, Mr. City Manager, if possible, with finding them a permanent room for them. I mean, this is a team that went all the way to California representing High Springs, Florida, and we supported them, and we should have. And you know, I look at that very fondly, and we've got to figure out something for them. We've got enough stuff out here. We got to find something for them and really support them. I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose another thing to Alachua or Newberry or Gainesville, another thing for our kids to do. When I was growing up, I played baseball here, I played basketball here, and my kids have played baseball in damn Alachua, and my daughter plays softball in Alachua, and you know, they don't use our facilities. They might as well not even be High Springs kids. So we have got to find something for this group and stop losing what we have for our kids to other towns. That's what I have. But I appreciate everybody coming tonight in the conversation.
Do we know where they were and why they were? I don't know what room they use. Do we know?
I was told.
Right? Has something changed that we don't know about, or? Okay. Huh.
Yeah, I've heard that they're doing a shared room now, is what I've been told. I've reached out to Mr. Sweat. I'm hoping that him and I can talk in the next couple days and kind of figure out what the real issues are. But I've had, several community members whose kids are on the team and whatnot call me extremely upset.
So I meet with Mr. Sweat, I think it's either Tuesday. I meet with him Tuesday afternoon to hear what his concerns are, see if he's got any solutions, and I'll start looking into it to see if we can find them a permanent space.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
We're doing interviews next week for the new Parks and Rec director, and that will be one of the things that they'll start looking into immediately is, you're exactly right about the youth programs, and that's one of the big things that I'm going to hone in on with the Parks and Rec is programming and see if we can find ways to increase the youth programs in High Springs, robotics being one of them. That's not really expanding with robotics, but try to find a solution for them, because their stuff, it wasn't a shared room, and somebody moved the stuff, which is okay. Well, it's not really okay. But these things that these kids are building are very temperamental. And if you move them, things can get messed up with them. They put a lot of hard work into it. So a share with the sensitivity of the stuff that the robotics team is building, maybe a shared room is not the appropriate thing for them. I don't know where would put them. I don't know where we have empty, permanent space for them, but it's something for me to start looking into.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
No
Let me shed some light on that, for all the misinformation being sent out. They took my stuff, pushed it in the corner. That's deep to the African American community. They took it actually and stuck it in a corner, like they didn't give a rat's, and it bothered us. And nobody spoke to me about it or anything else. I know who did it, but I won't call no names. But they was wrong. And they know that we had the Douglas Historical Society had their stuff in that room. They knew they had it in there. I mean, they actually took it, stuck it in a corner. Half of them stuff is missing now. Pictures of the school and everything else. Yes, I moved it.
I didn't know you moved.
I moved it. Because they shouldn't have not moved it without speaking to me first. And everybody know that the African American had that room. And it was very upsetting. And some of the stuff that the African American community said was very hurtful for what they took and put that stuff in a corner. And I'm not going to even fault them. That's why I have a big problem with the art program this year. Because we loaned it to them. And that's why they put the stuff back. And they did not put it back like they're supposed to. And that was wrong. If you should have put it back just like you found it. If not, you shouldn't have never moved it. But I moved it. My community, my organization, we moved it. Because it was moved without our permission. And I'm serious. It hurt me deeply when they took the artifacts that we have and stuck them in a corner. I mean, actually stuck them in a corner. And it was wrong. It was wrong. At least somebody should have spoke to us, let us know what was going on. And we could have went from there. And I would love for them to have some of the place to put this stuff. But I thought it was very wrong where they took my stuff and just stuck it in the corner. And it was
I
wrong.
agree. I don't think anybody should be touching anybody's stuff.
It
That's why
was
we
wrong.
need to probably move away from these shared rooms and figure out where people have their places, because I agree. Nobody should move your stuff just the same way.
Yes.
I completely agree with that. And if your stuff's missing, that's horrific.
Yes, it is. And that, on my pictures that I can't recover.
Right.
There's no way possible to recover.
Yeah, we got to do better with security on that too, and who's got access to what.
I'm not going to support security. I ain't know.
Well, not like having somebody there, but if you have a
quiet, I'm call names.
but locked doors and I don't know the whole, and I didn't know that background to it. So thank you for shedding that light on it.
Yes.
But yes,
But I know who did it, but I'm keeping quiet.
Is there a possibility that they could, I know it would be another shared space, but would it be a possibility to go to the garden club? Because they just meet, right? They don't really have a lot of.
You mean the robotics?
Mm-hmm.
It's a city-owned building,
At least look into the option and see if the garden club would be open to it. Because I don't think they do a lot of interacting there. They do. I mean, they have meetings, but they don't do a lot of worrying about somebody touching it or something like that.
So you guys don't still meet there?
On
Yeah.
the other side.
Yeah. That might be another, would that be another option, you think, Commissioner Bloodsworth?
Ain't that building that big?
I don't think our side is big enough.
Okay, okay.
I know the garden club meets there pretty regular, and they have quite a bit of membership. I'm not sure about sharing because our facility is probably going to need some work done to it
Yeah.
anyway.
Oh, for sure.
Sounds like y'all sharing already.
Well,
One side and the other.
we're in the midst of getting ready to share with AA. We're working on
Okay.
a deal with that right
Good.
now.
Good.
They've contacted me about being able to use that to meet on Saturdays. So we're trying to work something out with them, and we already know we have got to have some work done. And we've remodeled that before on our own dime, and it's got to come back again. So we're not sure where we're going with that. But as far as having some technical stuff in there with us meeting, I'd hate for something to happen, sensitive stuff, because we do go in and out of there with our equipment, emptying our trailer, what have you, and I'm not sure how that would work with also sharing with another organization in there.
Yeah, and we don't have to come up with a solution right now.
Yeah, I just wanted to give some suggestions. Even like the building behind Ace, what is it actually used for? Just clothes? How does somebody
That's just
actually
food.
utilize it?
That's just food now.
Okay.
The yellow building, yeah. All right. Mr. Walker, I wanted to get some legal clarification from you because there was a lot of comment after last meeting about letters being read or not read. So I want to make sure that I understand really clearly, because we're being accused of ignoring the people, not, shutting people up, and that's not any of our intent up here, certainly. So in terms of proper processes and procedures, what's the best, what do we need to do to make sure that we're complying with everything we should be?
It's really the discretion of the chair to do that. And for example, you might have a situation where you have 50 letters, and I think it would be, very difficult to go through each one of those letters and then read all of that into the record. If you have a brief letter that somebody says, I would really like for you to read this in, and it moves the meeting along, then I think then it's your discretion to do that. If we get the letters in, any of the commissioners wish to read them at the meeting, it might influence their decisions on whatever matters are there. But certainly it's a public record, so all of those letters do need to be filed with the clerk at the meeting.
Okay.
So it's really your discretion.
I would prefer for it to be the same way every time, with no gray area whatsoever. So, if we get a lot of communication in, would it be acceptable if they weren't read at the meeting, if they were given to the city clerk to include in the minutes so that they are a matter of public record and everything is there?
Yes.
Would that be prohibitive and challenging for you guys? Because I know there were a lot that you were sorting through last time, and,
Forward them to me. So with the last meeting, I was not attached to any of those letters that were submitted, so I didn't have them to provide to you. They were sent to you directly, so unless you forward them to me, I
Right.
don't have them to put on the record.
Right. I just don't want anybody to ever think that you're cherry picking or not reading. But I want to make sure that there's a way to make sure that those letters are part of the public record if that's desired, without, taking over 2 hours of a meeting. So I don't know what's reasonable or required. I just wanted to make sure I understood that. And as for comments on the City of High Springs Facebook page, I don't know how it is that we make those all visible because they're not. And I don't know, this might be a Kevin question. I can't see them all. Okay. So long as they're, visible to everybody, that was important to me. And there was a fabulous article last week telling us all about our government, and I found something in this letter to the editor talking about Section 2-97 provides that the city manager and the city clerk are the only two officers of the city authorized to countersign all checks. The only time the mayor is authorized to step in and countersign any check is either if the city has no city manager or city clerk at that time. Commissioner Williams, you've been mayor a number of times. You sign checks, right? Okay. I've got Resolution 2012-D here that was passed on the 8th of March that says all City of High Springs checks issued in payment of city expenses shall continue to require 2 signatures. All checks shall require the signature of either the mayor or vice mayor and the signature of either the city manager or city clerk. And that resolution was effective upon its passage on the 8th day of March 2012. So there's just some information out there that wasn't quite accurate that I wanted to make sure we were clear that by my signing checks, I'm not stepping outside what I'm supposed to be doing. That seemed to be perhaps implied. We had a tree board meeting on Monday. We're re-bringing up the tree board. They were fabulous, very organized, very enthusiastic. The county arborist was here, and she was wonderful. She was so passionate. So I encourage everybody to get involved with the tree board. The Historical Society is having a meeting on the 1st of June, I believe, at 10:30. If anybody wants to go be part of our museum and give them some direction, that'd be great. Kevin, I want to thank you for everything that you're putting out there. And the picture of our micro episode right here in High Springs was epic. And I thank that gentleman for diving into where he did. And I think your depiction was wonderful. Jason, thank those guys for us for being willing to do that. I know it was a short dive, but it was important, and I'm glad somebody was willing to do it. Micro needs to be here. Angela and Jamie, you guys are absolute rock stars. People don't know how much you're doing behind the scenes, even when you're supposed to be on vacation. You're still answering, and that's your idea of vacation is unique. But you handle so many requests that come in every day, and you do it with a smile, and we would be lost without you guys. Mr. Alligood apparently ran into a citizen yesterday, came into the building department, and the citizen called me and said he was smiling ear to ear. And he was talking to him, and Mr. Alligood said, well, I just got out of a staff meeting. And so our citizens are noticing that when our department heads are coming out of staff meetings, they are smiling. Mr. Marshall, certainly that is a testament to you, sir. Staff meetings are, they can be a drag, but they can also be fun. So thank you for making it fun for them to the extent that everybody's noticing that. So thank you. I want to wish everybody a safe and happy Memorial Day while we take the time to honor and remember everybody who lost their lives so that we could sit up here and do what we're doing. And I appreciate you all, gentlemen, for your dedication to this community, because I feel like we're a cohesive group. We don't always have to agree, but I'm so grateful for your dedication. So that is all I have, gentlemen. I'll entertain a motion.